Greetings, wrestling fans, and welcome to Fannin's Flashbacks, the podcast that nobody asked for, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. This podcast is going to cover tales from IWA Mid-South during my 12 years with the company, and it will be a part of the VNMVS Podcast Network. This podcast is intended for mature audiences only due to the foul language and graphic details about deathmatch wrestling that it will contain. This will be your backstage pass to get a peek behind the curtain at what led to the downfall of the craziest independent wrestling promotion of the late 1990s, early 2000s. And without any further ado, Nick Manawa, hit the music.
Greetings, wrestling fans, and welcome to episode 26 of Fannin's Flashbacks. It's the podcast nobody asked for, but I decided to give it to you anyway. Thank you for bearing with me these last 2 weeks as I indulged myself on current affairs and trying my best to channel Stringer Bell from The Wire on letting the wrestling world know that the Fannin family is back up and running this shit again. After a couple of weeks of focusing on my comeback attempt and things happening right now, we're going to return to the flashbacks part of the podcast and tell tales from IWA Mid-South during my time there from 1997 to 2009. And I am joined today by a man that was a thorn in the side of the Fannin family for quite some time leading up to War Games. He is a former IWA Mid-South World Heavyweight Champion, and thanks to the Freebird Rule, he was also a tag team champion with Ryan Boz and Brad Bradley. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, I proudly present to you Bones Malone! Excuse me, Trick Davis. Trick, how you doing?
I'm good. That lovely intro reminds me of, like, I tagged with Road Dogg. He called me Bones Malone the entire time in a affectionately non-affectionate way. And then I tagged with Billy Gunn, and I think it was Morris Mayhem 2. And
that would have been the one that he was on, yeah.
Yeah, against Chandler and Eric Priest. And there was this super jacked guy in the front row who looked like Ronnie Garvin, and he's like, "Oh, I should be tagging with you instead." And I was like, "Oh, another great thing for my self-esteem." We were like winning, so it's like, I mean, we're gonna, like, this will be okay. And that was like a pretty fun, cute match.
I sadly have no memory of pretty much any of that second Morris show because I just sat there with my hand in my head looking at the sparse crowd and how completely different it was than the first Morris show because the coaching staff had changed. It was a brand new coaching staff, and the guy did not want to be distracted during the season. You know, me and Ian were so paranoid because of the snowstorm. We're like, let's do this early. So we know there's absolutely no way that we're going to have to deal with snow. And so we went while the season was still going, and the coach just did not want to do any kind of promotional work for it. The newspaper had pretty much died by then, and the newspaper did a great job of promoting that first show for us. And they were running articles like every day for 2 weeks and profiling different wrestlers and giving it a bump. And, you know, the coach was having the players push tickets on their family and friends. And that first one just went fantastic. And we're like, if it hadn't been for that snow, we would have had like 2,500, 3,000 people for this damn thing. And I thought for sure that if we could just do it a little earlier and not have to worry about weather being a problem, we could do it. And, you know, the coach just did not cooperate. That new coach just did not cooperate. And that whole night, I just sat there miserable. And the lady that ran the booster club, which was like called like the M Club or something, like the quarterback club, that was what they were, the Morris quarterback club. She just watched me the whole night just sit there in misery. And so at the end of the night, she was like, "We don't deserve any of the money. Just pay the wrestlers for coming here and giving us a good show. So don't worry about having to give us anything because we didn't earn it." And so that like saved our ass that night. Uh, we had like Samoa Joe and Billy Gunn and
Joe Hero, I think, wrestled.
I think that might have been, yeah, I think it might have been like
The main
Joe
thing,
Necro 2 and
maybe it was that. Yeah. Man, who did? Because I remember the Tomasellis wrestled Rollins and Merrick, or Tyler and Merrick, or whatever. And it was like a scramble tag was the first match. I can't remember like another team. And then all I really remember is Sweeney did something with like the football coach or something.
it had to have been like a parent or something because
Okay.
none of the players came, none of the we had that year they ended up winning the state championship and finally beat Joliet Catholic that season.
And they should have done more shows because
So you should have done more, they should have done more shows because we obviously brought them luck, even though they did not bring us luck that season. But yeah, they finally beat Joliet Catholic a month after our show. They won the state championship, and the star of the football team was like the coach's son. He was all state running back, all state safety. So like he had like 45 rushing touchdowns that year. In 14 games, he had like 45 rushing touchdowns. He was safety or cornerback. He was one of the defensive backs. In the Joliet Catholic game, he had like 3 rushing touchdowns. He intercepted 2 passes in the end zone to seal the win at the end. And I think he returned one of them for a touchdown. He had like all the point. He kicked the extra points, but then he was also undefeated wrestler state champion. Like his sophomore, junior, and senior years, he was undefeated state champion. Went to Illinois on a full ride wrestling scholarship. And I think he had like I think he got like 3rd or 4th or something like that at the collegiate at his weight class or something. So the guy was like a machine,
yeah,
and I kept trying to I was like, let him like beat the hell out of somebody. Like they'll sell for him, and the coach was like, "Are you crazy? I ain't letting him risk getting hurt doing this bullshit." I'm like, "Well, you might have a point there. Yeah,
yeah.
I don't
But he
don't
could have
risk."
gave
He
Larry
could have,
Sling fireman's carry or something.
right? It could have been something, but yeah,
Big
that sh-
airplane
that
spin.
show was probably, without a doubt, that show one of the biggest disappointments in my career was how that second Morris show would
And that's
just.
how we're starting the
And
episode.
that's how we're starting the episode.
Um, what do you think? And I don't know too much about like kind of like the Kmart building days and stuff, but I was trying to think of, and we'll get into like my ish and our stuff in a second. Uh, what do you think is like one of the bigger, like what are some of the biggest drawing shows for IWA? Because I would think We're No Joke was like a huge one. Like,
Well, the first Morris show was the largest attendance. The Something to Prove ECW Arena show, I think that was second. And then We're No Joke probably would be third
yeah,
as far as post Kmart building. I know Morris was number 1 overall. I think ECW Arena was number 2 overall. But there was a spell there, and I know I've talked about it on this podcast before. Legitimately, he was getting 500 people a week at the height of the Kmart building. So like the 97 Eddie Gilbert Memorial to about the 98 Eddie Gilbert Memorial, he was making bank.
yeah,
Like they had a liquor license, so they were selling
wow,
beer at the concession stand, and it was 400 to 500 people a week. We were drawing more at the Kmart building than what Lawler and them were drawing at the Louisville Gardens, running the same night at the same time.
yeah,
And so it like almost after the top 2, probably the next 20 are going to be like Kmart building shows, and it wouldn't even have to be like a big show per se. It was just every week.
Yeah.
You know, he had, but then once Cornette and JC Bailey's dad and Danny Davis and all of them just started making all their phone calls and doing all their bitching because they could not compete against us. And I'll go to my grave saying that we outdrew them. We were putting on better shows than them. We had better wrestlers than them, and they couldn't compete. So they went the crybaby route, and when they're using weapons and when they're bleeding and when, and got it to where we couldn't do what we were doing anymore. And the fans, I mean, the shows were still good, but so many of those fans were just there for the blood and the guts and to see the violence that they couldn't see anywhere else, that once that went away, they stopped coming, and we just could not get them to come back. And then once they came and shut us down, when Ian was over in Germany wrestling, and the state troopers came with 12 gauge shotguns loaded and pointed and ready to shoot us to shut the show down at the Total Eclipse Teen Club. It was, I think Manawa talked about it on his episode that we did on here, where he found out 5-6 years later, there was people that he was going to school with that had been going to the teen club in the Kmart building. And after they shut us down and we stopped running for a short amount of time.
Yeah.
They thought we were completely done. They had no idea that we were running Charlestown. They had no idea that we were running Clarksville and had the buildings just on the other side of the bridge. And people laugh at me when I talk about this, but I'm serious. The territorial feelings that people have in Kentuckiana, Louisville people will not cross that bridge and go over into Southern Indiana. They view it as like this third world, backwoods, nothing happening. They're like, everything I've got is right here on my side of the bridge. I don't ever have to cross that side of the bridge for nothing. And you would not get them to cross that bridge. Would not get them to cross that bridge. And then vice versa. There was people on the Southern Indiana side that you could not get to go over the bridge and go into Kentucky. And it's like, as somebody from Chicago, there is no difference between Southern Indiana and Louisville, Kentucky. Okay. Absolutely no difference whatsoever.
When I would be in like the different parts, like staying with like Reed or Manawa, I'm like, oh, this is actual, but like where we wrestled was 5 minutes from here. That's cool. Like, oh, is Skaters is in Indiana and now we're in Louisville. Okay, cool. That's fine.
Right.
Or Dammers, yeah.
Yeah. But down there, so damn territorial. And so like you couldn't get people to, some of them that were like, nope, we will not, you can't run in Kentucky. We'll never see you again. It was like, Jesus.
Where No Joke really sticks out to me because like shows did well at Midlow. There's some like good houses, but like that was like a different animal. I think there were like 400 or 500 people for that one. It's like, usually we'd have like 150, 200, which is cool.
Right.
But I remember Hero for the finish of the ladder match, like snuck in there, and he did it to be sneaky, even though it's a ladder match, which is just him being really good at pro wrestling. And he like electric chaired me on the top rope, threw me out of the ring, so we didn't make any noise, so the ref wouldn't turn around. And then he tried to throw me into the crowd, and I'm used to like the armories where it's like you could fly through like 5 like rows of people or 5 rows of chairs because there weren't people.
Right.
And I went to do that, and the chair stopped, and it like browed me, so I was like bleeding, and not bad. My friend like taped me up in the like office, but I was like, oh yeah, I'm not used to there being so much humanity on the floor here.
Yeah, you couldn't. It was like a throwback that day. I think it was slightly over 400 I know it didn't touch 5, but yeah, it was a big show.
Yeah, that was because then ROH was at Chicago Ridge, the Hall of Fame thing was there, and then the next day was Mania. Probably we'll see what happens with this potential Bears thing, but potentially the last Mania that'll be in Chicago for. I mean, it's been 20 years now, so we'll see what happens. We can be optimistic.
Well, yeah. Now that they just go to stadium for
Yeah,
that, there's not really you can't risk trying to do an outdoor show in April in Chicago.
yeah.
So,
Because it might be snowing. Like my
right,
birthday's next week, and like we were talking about like COVID-y things, really positive. We were very positive to start a conversation. And like it snowed on my birthday in 2020. So like even with Chicago, like I would think a SummerSlam could be here, but like you never know with just like the way our interesting city is, which is why we love it.
right, yeah. And if you're not happy with the weather now, just wait 6 hours and it'll be completely different and
It
the
was
opposite. And
a 30-degree difference yesterday, and I think Sunday it's like 70, and so
yeah, I mean, I'm just getting over a horrific cold that like floored me for about a week. So there was a couple of coughing fits I had during the episode with Connor that, just we're recording this as the day that the Connor episode dropped. So the hopefully I don't have any coughing fits now, but yeah, this weather changing 35, 40 degrees every single day back and forth it just rained havoc on, couldn't breathe and was miserable it was probably just under a week. And I don't think the WWE wants to come here and try to contend with something like that for a Mania, and who knows how many lawsuits they would have, people saying you got me sick.
well, even like there was a Mania a few years ago in Philly, like 2 years ago, and like the first night it was like 40, and like the crowd was like not, because like being outside for like a football game is like one thing, but like a 6 hour commitment, because you got to get there early. The show's gonna be 4 hour. Like it's like for the main event, like people were kind of down, and I was like, well, it's really. And the next day it was like 65, 70, which probably felt even better for them the next day. But yeah, it's interesting. Last month I had two like almost colds, which like now are almost more annoying because it's like, can I go do stuff? It's like, can I go hang out with people? If is working out right now a good idea? Is it the worst idea I could have? So it's like I'd rather just be full blown sick and like be able to get over it. But yeah,
I can answer that question for you, Trick. The answer to it's always a bad time to work out. Take it from the fat guys. Always a bad time.
For the sake of my livelihood, I would disagree, but everyone is entitled to their own opinion. We're all on our own journeys of life and all those words.
Yes. So before we start getting into a lot of the discussion of IWA stuff, we can let the fans that are listening in. We always usually start off the episodes by just talking about how you became a wrestling fan to begin with. If you want to give a little rundown of that.
Yeah, so my earliest memory in life is Honky Tonk Man hitting Jake the Snake with a guitar on the Snake Pit. Like that is like the first thing I remember in life. Which is interesting. It's like not that like Jake the Snake's cool, but I think it was just so different than like anything you'd ever seen before. And so like that was really like something I always remember. Then I was like big Hulk Hogan kid, like a kid of the 80s would be. Watching everything. My dad was a big fan too, but he liked Mid-South and NWA. So like I remember a few like even like as like a 7-year-old, I was like a nerd and I knew all the results to every pay-per-view. I mean, there had been 10, so it was easier at that time. but like he'd be like, "Oh yeah, Eddie Gilbert and Rick Steiner and Sting," and I was like, "You're making things up. Like this never happened." I don't know what you're talking about. Like I see all the WCW shows. Like those guys were never, so like he really liked the Road Warriors. So he's like, I gotta get my boy to like the Road Warriors. Which the day he decided to try to get me into the Road Warriors was the day they took the spike off and stabbed Dusty Rhodes.
Nice.
Cried
The big black dot.
Cried profusely. And then he just like, I think that he just kind of gave up on me and my masculinity in that moment, which was probably a good idea. So then I like 89, still just WWF. And then like when Sting got hurt, because everyone always shows the like WCW cards that are like the red and the blue, or the red and the green, like those are like really popular. I collected the black ones with like the gold stars on them. And they're like, I think the other ones are like 91 and these are like 90. So I had like a card with like Sting in the brace with no makeup on. And that's kind of like when I started getting really into WCW too, as well as WWF. I remember seeing this, I think this was 91, but like maybe it was 90. The famed like where the Freebirds lost the belts to the Steiners. But that match like happened before the Freebirds won the belts on the pay-per-view. Like I find that out now as a grown man. So like, but like I remember watching it with my dad and just being like, "Oh man, like a title change like on like free TV. Like this is amazing." Then 90, his buddy with the black box started taping the pay-per-views for me. So like the next day, which like there was no internet and like prime time, I don't even know. Like it was cool, like for WCW stuff, you had no idea until like the following Saturday anyway. So started getting all the pay-per-views. It's like that time period is one of the reasons why like Arn Anderson is somebody I've always held very highly, because I watched him beat people every week on TV on the weekend shows. So like when Z-Man beat him, I was like, oh, Z-Man's a big...
Oh, I hated all that. Oh,
Z-Man was not a made man, but a fun wrestler. He had some good tag matches with Brian Pillman. And then Bobby Eaton beating Arn was huge. And then Steve Austin, like he'd probably been wrestling like 2 years, 3 years, beating Bobby Eaton. And then one of the big things that really sold me on Steve Austin was he could stun gun PN News. And I'm pretty sure I saw that they did that every match that he beat him, which like... It's one thing to like see it once, but it was like, oh, there's no gifts, so we gotta show them this every time. So yeah, all that. So I just liked wrestling all throughout the 90s. I never had like I'm too cool for this period. It was nice when I was about 12, when the Attitude Era, because like everybody got into wrestling then, but it's like I've been watching it for my whole life. So like me having like knowing all of Wink Dink and Pink, like, oh yeah, like actually like made me cool for a very short amount of time. So like all that stuff, I never really thought about wrestling because I was a child, but like one of the things that changed that for me was watching the True Story I'm a Pro Wrestler, where they taped like they taped a lot of HWA things. Like they featured Tony Atlas on there, Rapid Delivery Rory Fox, who's still going, Shark Boy, that's the first place I saw him. And there was a guy, I think he was from Downers Grove, named Matt, potentially. He was trying to train at HWA, and like BJ, Nigel, like all those, Cody Hawk, all those dudes are in the training footage. He also like was smoking crack like on the show. I think, I don't want to put too much badness on his name if he wasn't, but he was like doing interesting things, and I was like, well, if that guy could like train to be a pro wrestler, I might be able to do this.
Well, if that crack smoker can do it, then certainly I can.
Potentially, I might have a shot. So yeah, then when I was 16, I called in. Oh man, I know Jonathan Hood is the one guy, and the other guy I see on like Bears clips, who's a like famous sports.
Dan Jiggets?
No, Lawrence, I think's his name.
Lawrence Holmes.
Yes. So they had their own wrestling show that would be on after Raw. So I would call in, which I wasn't supposed to be allowed to do if I wasn't 18, but I didn't know that. So I called in because MCW, which was ran by Brian Zenner, was running a show like that Saturday in Grays Lake. So I called in. They're like, "Oh, if you call in, we'll give you like so many free tickets." So I'm talking to them, and they're like, "Oh, do you have an ID to pick these up?" And I was like, "Oh no, I'm 15." I was 15 at this point, and they were like, "Oh, you're not supposed to like call into the show." And they're like, "But it's cool. Like, bring your mom or something." So I go, and I think they gave me 3 tickets. And I was like, cool. So I had 2 of my buddies. My mom's like, I'll just wait in the car because she's the sweetest woman. That morning, like there was another buddy with us hanging out, and they weren't mailed to us. Like somebody like had our address and just dropped off 2 more tickets and put them in our mailbox.
Wow.
So like, I was like, okay, Chris, you could come, and Mom, you're coming to the show. And she was happy. King Kong Bundy wrestled Dice Man. And the main event was Vic Capri and Chris Daniels. I saw Chris Daniels, so this was 01, so had a match with Chris Candido on Worldwide in August of 2000. And he did the Arabian to the floor. Like, Candido was definitely trying to like they were like, it was like an ECW match. Like they use a chair. Like it's probably pretty accessible and it's super fun. And I was like, emailing him like, oh, like just like questions like who are some of your favorite wrestlers and things like that, and reach out to him and a bunch of other dudes. So that's how I kind of that's why I wanted to go to the MCW shows, to see Chris Daniels. I think like 2 weeks before he did the thing on Thunder where him and Mike Modest had a match. That's where he like spikes on his head and almost breaks his neck. And then Scott Steiner comes in and breaks their legs, but he was wrestling in Grays Lake 2 weeks later. So we went to the show. Beforehand, he was doing a signing at Gurney Mills, like the redacted video distributors stand there. So I went to that and got his autograph, bought a bunch of tapes. Then we went to the show. I was talking to a bunch of people. And I talked to Vito Tomaselli. And I was like, oh, I'm 16, but I'd like to start wrestling, da-da-da. And Vito was like, well, PCW would take you. That's where I trained. And I was like, oh, cool. So then I called whatever number and left a voicemail with Sonny Rogers, who ran the school in Stone Park. He eventually called me back. My mom went with me one day. We checked it out, and then I signed up to start training.
Nice. And just to touch on some of the things that you mentioned there while you were talking about that, and you were talking about like the title switch that happened before it aired and all this other stuff, it just immediately brought to mind the one time that it dawned on me that maybe some of this stuff isn't on the up and up. And I'm watching, and it had to have been like, I mean, of course I knew it was not all on the up and up by this point, because it was like right before Hogan came in to WCW. So they had the NWA had split with WCW or whatever. So the big gold belt became like the international title or whatever. And so they were doing, I think it was Flair Sting at Clash of the Champions to like unify the titles.
Yeah.
And I remember watching WCW Saturday night. And so it's Saturday night, watching their show, the Clash of the Champions. They were billing it as, live Clash of the Champions on TBS Tuesday night or Wednesday night, whatever, 2-3 nights from, the Saturday night. And I remember they go to Mean Gene Okerlund and he's doing his Bash at the Beach pay-per-view promo or whatever to like hype Hulk Hogan. And he starts it by going, and congratulations to Nature Boy Ric Flair on unifying the titles and beating Sting at Clash of the Champions. And I'm like, that show hasn't even fucking happened yet. What are you talking about?
What if they would have just done like Hogan versus like Sting for like the worst like first match you could do? Like, so that time in wrestling, like growing up, there is a certain joy that like I don't think can be captured now, which is watching superstars every week and then a new match for a pay-per-view being announced. Because it was like, I remember when Bret Hart and Mr. Perfect, which then became one of my favorite matches ever for SummerSlam 91, being announced, like, made me so ecstatic. And it's like the match isn't happening for like 2 months, but just like it'd be like 3 weeks and nothing, and then it'd be like, oh, and there's gonna be Tito Santana versus the Warlord, and it's like, oh, what is going?
Well, right, because back then the pay-per-views, it was like every 3 months.
Yep.
You know, so they would have to space things out and let things breathe and actually have decent feuds that, you know, they could build up and tell good stories with. And now it's every 3 weeks there's a whatever, I don't even know what the fuck I know it's not pay-per-view now, but
insert acronym,
you know, PLE or whatever the fuck they're calling shit now. And I'm like, space this crap out, because, you know, I'm not caring at all about any of it. And of course, you know, I haven't watched any of it in forever. And, you know, you were talking about we were talking about these manias earlier. I haven't watched a WrestleMania since, I think the last WrestleMania I watched was the first part of whatever WrestleMania was where Hogan faced Rock.
Okay.
And I left before that match even happened. I think there might have been like Eddie Guerrero might have won like the Intercontinental title from Van Dam on that show or something.
I think there's a Kane Kurt Angle match on that piece.
Yeah, I think I left after the Eddie Guerrero match, and haven't watched one since. But you know, since I don't watch these things, but you were talking about like the 6-hour investment in going to the WrestleMania, and I've heard people talk about when did Ian Rotten start booking WrestleManias?
I mean, my first show is similar-ish to that, but they had for a point. But so listening to the Connor episode, you were talking about that Simply the Best. That like I literally think I got paid at 4:00 in the morning.
It would not surprise me. It was ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous how late.
It was like after midnight, and Hero and B-Boy went, and Hero's like, I'm going 40 minutes. Like,
right. Well, that's what I was like. You know, it's after midnight, and Chris Hero goes out there and has a 45-minute match with B-Boy, and I'm have to wait for that to end. And I'm like I said, I'm hitting the ring, and it's 1:00 in the morning on Easter. It's like, don't you? You know, and Ian would always be, oh, well, you know, if I was a fan, I'd want to be here all night. Yeah, well, nobody else fucking wants to be here all night. Okay.
There are a lot of people. Like, the hard part then for the wrestlers was like, then we have to wait for Ian to sit down.
Right.
And especially for me being the lowest on the totem pole, you know, it's like the probably last person paid. It's like, which is fine. But like, yeah, that was, there is something nice about, I do like staying at shows, but it is nice if like you are, you know, have like a pretty good drive. It's like, you could cut out and we'll just pay you tomorrow. You know, that is a fun thing with how some of that stuff was, because then it's like, you're not going to like a restaurant till like 3 or 4. We're going to the Steer around the clock, which not a fan of either of them famously. Yeah. So that was, and definitely interestingness.
Okay. So you said you're like 16, you were 16 when you started training?
Yeah. So I started at this school in Stone Park. Sonny Rogers owned the school at the time. So he was in AWA, and then he would like, would do like jobs for WWE, WWF. Ugh. And like, you know, I remember watching him wrestle Owen Hart, and he definitely has no knees, and he's like trying to run so he could take a spin heel kick, and it was an interesting sight. IWA alum Sonny Rogers, as Dave brought him in for the last Highland show to wrestle Sweeney.
Okay, I think I vaguely
I think most
remember
people
that.
vaguely remember it. So then two of the bigger people that come out of there are probably Adam Pearce and Justin Roberts, I think, trained with Sonny. And then we kind of reconnected at that Priest show ran by POW. So Jimmy Blaze was one of the trainers who runs POW, and Nicholas
Okay.
Hayes was one of the owners too, when they kind of took things over after some interestingness. And then kind of me, Ego, Vito, like I said, and then Brandon Tomaselli were kind of, and Stoney, because Stoney will come up because he's the one who brought me to IWA. We were kind of like the Smart Mark video generation people they'd probably know. And then later I found out Mojo McQueen, who does some stuff out of Chicago, and GPA also trained at the same school.
Okay. Some successful folks there. It had to have been a decent little school. And you know, a lot of the guys that have been on here on the podcast with me so far have told stories about, you know, their wrestling school experience not being the greatest, and having some skeevy people involved, and having to switch schools after starting and things like that, because the business is just littered with stories like that.
I'll get to those.
But your experience for yourself was okay.
It was fine. My first day of wrestling school, I didn't even get in the ring. I just kind of met everybody. I got dropped off. Somebody's wallet got stolen. So
On the first day.
Yes. So the guy is like freaking out, and I don't know any of these people. So everyone's kind of jokingly like, it's probably the new kid. And I'm like, as you knew from knowing me when I was 18, a terrified human of everything, which is a great trait for being a professional entertainer.
And so were you like maybe 75 pounds at the age of 16? I mean,
I remember weighing myself earlier that year, and I was 112.
112. So, okay. Okay.
I think by the time I made it to IWA, it was like 130. So they put everyone had to walk into the office, and there was a refrigerator in there, and it's like, just drop it in there. No one else will be in there when you're in, like, they would be in there alone. Somebody put it in there. Otherwise, nobody leaves. So we kind of think we know who did it. The wallet was returned, but that was a kind of shocking first day.
So they had to put the wallet in the fridge.
Yes. So it was like, just put it in there. Everyone was told to open the fridge, even if you didn't take it, close it, walk out.
Okay.
So
now what would have happened if the original thief put the wallet in the fridge, but then somebody else that went in after that person then took it out of the fridge?
I think eventually it would have been musical chairs-ish, and nobody would, or we'd still be there. We'd still be in this garage.
And why did they choose having to put it in the fridge? Did they like take cold hard cash literally?
There's like cold storage. It was kind of on the before crypto really became a thing.
Okay.
So yeah, that was the first day. We're pretty sure we know who did it. In December, we're pretty sure that same person burnt that school down. So that was
okay.
Yeah, so they were running.
But you're not going to name names.
No,
that's good, because Nick Manawa would then have to like put back up the big red X, and he's still giving me shit for naming names on the AMA. I was like, it was Ask Me Anything. I had to. I didn't know I could censor the name. It was Ask Me Anything, so I answered.
I was anythinging. So I will tell you an interesting fact about this potential individual. Like, I'll message you later.
Okay.
So that was my first day. So we did that. Then the school was burnt down eventually. They started running shows kind of all over, which was kind of fun to like destroy it. Like, it's like pretty much burnt down. So we got to like break everything, like teenagers do. And
Now, was this like an actual fire, or was this like the stabbing at the Berwyn Club?
This was an actual fire.
An actual fire? Okay.
Unrelated to anything in words, but definitely a fire. And so everything was kind of burnt. Something, Ego and I talk about this because a lot of people on shows now be like, oh, that ring's terrible, this thing. We trained in this ring, which was a 16-foot ring that had a spring underneath it, like a soul spring that would like almost jackhammer itself into the cement. And every once in a while it would get caught like up here. So I would have to like crawl under there in like my Dragon Ball Z shirt and like kick this thing until it jackhammered back down, and then crawl back out and make sure I didn't get any dirt on my trunk shirt. So that was another interesting thing about that school. So then the school shut down, but reopened in Elk Grove in a really nice facility. They bought another interesting ring thing with this place. This is why I'm kind of like, I don't think any rings are really hard. They bought a boxing ring.
Oh,
ring. So like the first show I did like jumping off somebody for a high cross, and he just like stuck me with a spine buster, and it was like cool, but I was like, I don't think anything will ever hurt now. Like,
yeah, that'll definitely do it. My goodness, spine buster in a boxing ring. I'm hurt just listening to it.
Yep, kind of off the top rope-ish. So it was definitely an interesting one.
Man. Okay, so how long did you train before you actually started then wrestling?
So I trained. So at the time, you had to be 18 to wrestle in Illinois. So it was kind of like, you're just going to train until you might be able to get some work in Wisconsin. You might, eventually. I was also 112 pounds, so in no rush, really. I was doing that. I got to do a battle royal, my first battle royal ever. They had me come to the ring with a backpack on and then act like I was looking for the library, and then everybody came out of me. So that was my first battle royal. That was in October. I started training in like June. Then in November, they were like, hey, like, we appreciate what you do, but we know we can't have you on shows. So we want to pay you to be like the head of security. And I was like, oh, and I was like going to get paid more to do that than to wrestle. But then commission went away, and I had to wrestle and make like $30 less a show. Then I started working that like February. I had my first match in like 02 February, yeah, and mostly kind of just wrestled for that place.
Well, what a missed opportunity there, because head of security at 112 pounds, you could have just been reliving Roadhouse every single day with everybody going, I thought head of security, you'd be bigger.
Left boot. Yeah, I could have done all of the things, but it was definitely an interesting time. I'm a big Roadhouse fan, and so like Keith David is like fourth build or something. Like, he's billed really high in the credits, but all of his stuff is cut out. And I was told there was like a 2-hour cut of Roadhouse where obviously like he's a big character. I also enjoy the code in Roadhouse that good guys don't wear underwear, bad guys do. Big fan of that. And yeah.
Oh, I mean, that's such a fantastic way. What if they say my mama's a whore? I don't know. Is she?
Spying on people from a monster truck. Like, it's just, there's so many amazing things. And then Ben Gazzara is just an amazing bad guy in it. And
yeah,
it was interesting to me watching Big Lebowski as an adult and being like, oh, I think the Coen brothers like Roadhouse because like he's in it, Sam Elliott's in it, like
Yeah, but the Roadhouse such a damn good movie, and yeah, and then to hear the was it Bill? I think I ended up seeing a clip not too long ago where I think it's like Bill Murray calls his friend who's like married to the doctor in
yeah,
real
yeah, yeah.
life to tell his buddy, oh, your wife's about to get fucked on TBS right now. You might want to turn it on.
This fucking Swayze's doing it again. Yeah.
It's like, oh, that's something that, I could definitely see like wrestlers do it if somebody's significant other became like a movie star or something, and they'd just be seeking out that movie. Oh, I'm about to watch your wife get it. Oh my goodness. So you're in the business and you're wrestling. How did you get to where you were able to come to IWA?
So Stoney was one of the guys at my school, and then I was seeing like he was starting to pop up in IWA. He did a shot for them where like we ended up tagging, and I think he was like, "Oh, you're not like the worst wrestler ever." So I was like, "Oh, this is kind of feeling myself." So then there was the We Are Family show, which I think you'll have more background on who it was for potentially. I know it was some sort of charity thing. It was also a time where IWA was potentially going out of business, we were told.
Oh, well, one of 9,000 times. If I remember correctly, and I think somebody brought it up, like I had forgotten, and then we were talking about it on one of the podcast episodes, and somebody refreshed my memory. Um, if I recall correctly, I think it was a fundraiser for Delilah Starr,
Yeah.
like her kid.
Her son, yeah, I think it was
Yeah,
her son.
I think it was her son had like needed a kidney something like a needed a kidney or a liver or something, like needed some kind of medical procedure, maybe a transplant or something, and so it was money to raise for her, I do believe. But I mean, this is 2003, so
Yeah.
23 years ago. I just remember it was like an 8 hour long show, and
Yeah.
anybody and everybody, and what that was like outside in the parking lot or something,
So
wasn't it?
it was inside, but like anybody I think could get booked. It started at like 11 or noon. So I had probably 10 matches before that day. And I have a theory that like it's now harder for me to get bookings because Wrestling Karma, this period it was kind of easy and I was terrible. So like with that combination. So Stony, because I Chandler and Justin Cage were two other Chicago guys. We'll talk about Chandler a bit. They were booked for it. Like Danny and Boz, I think, got them booked for it. So Stoney brought myself and a gentleman named Cameron Cage to go to the show. And then I knew Adam Evans was doing it because he was kind of a big deal in Chicago. He was even a year younger than me. So he was 17 at the time. And like he was doing like Dreamwave. And then I think he was doing like Burt Prentice's shows in Tennessee where his mom was like his valet. And that was like a big like thing. She didn't valet for him for IWA. So I like Stoney, I don't know how far out, but was like, hey, I'm going to bring you to this thing. I think they had only really announced like Cannon, that Chaos fella, for it. So I showed up. I got to Stoney's house at like 3 or 4 a.m. We met the Cameron Cage guy. He drove us to the show. Get there, introducing yourself to everybody. I was like enamored with the 93-minute match with Hero and Punk. So meeting Hero was like a big deal for me. Uh, all of that. Meeting Ian, just terrified the whole time. And they're like, oh, we're going to have you wrestle Adam Evans. I was like, okay, cool. and I was talking to him because you kind of like, they were not super big on, because that's when they had the separate locker rooms. So
Yeah.
even beforehand, like nobody really got in the ring ish. And I'm kind of looking around. So I like call some stuff to him and he was like, okay. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then Shelly and Jimmy got in there and just ran through like a sequence. And I was like, hey, let's get in there for a second. And I was like, yeah, so that one thing I said, it's like this. And he was like, oh, it's like that. And I was like, I'm so glad we got it. There were like three things that we were going to do. They went, you know, like, he didn't, like, sometimes people just say stuff like, they're like, oh, yeah, that. And it's like, this is all weird. These, you know, like, so we did that. Show starts, match one, Ian Rotten versus Simon Says. And Simon was like, I don't know what happened, but he was in a closet and then came out of the closet, maybe just a room, you know, somewhere. He wasn't in the locker room, came out. Ian came out, and we just listened to him beat the shit out of him for like 15 or 20 minutes and then cut a promo after. And it's like, we can't watch any of it. We're just hearing it. Me and Justin Cades are just like, just trembling. Like, then I remember like watching Hero and Shelly was only a year in, but he was amazing. So it didn't matter. But like the way they were talking about wrestling, I was like, oh man, these guys are like obviously a different level. And Hero was like, because they can't talk, they were wrestling Danny and Jimmy. And that was like kind of the big match of the first block. And like both those are like feuds. So they don't need to really call anything. They might have called a little something. But when you have your bits, you could just, oh, we'll cycle through these. And Hero's like, yeah, I'll put you on my shoulders and do a double stomp without telling like Jimmy. I think he did it to Jimmy, who like not a ton bigger than my 112-pound self at the time.
At that point, no, he was not. He might have been 120, 125 at the time.
Yeah. So it was like, just like, I'm like, these guys don't know what's going to happen. And then that became a staple move. So like July 4th was We Are Family, and like Swiss Money Holding was here for that too. The next day, and I think Cannon tagged along for it, was the first Chikara Tag World Grand Prix. And that was the first time Skyday ever taught clinics in America. So like that was like kind of like a weirdly historic weekend. So I did that. It went fine. Stoney and I drove to a show in like not Streamwood, Streeter, Illinois, maybe.
Streeter, that's my wife's hometown.
Okay.
Streeter, Illinois.
So I wrestled in Streeter, which is like, it was wild to me to have two matches in one day, because it's like I have 20% more matches now. I have 12 now. I started, 12 hours ago. I had 10. So I did that. We had a match. It was fun. He was like, we're not going to call anything. I'm not going to tell you who's winning. And like he had me beat him with like a crucifix. So it was cute. Went home. There wasn't a ton, because it was a weird time, because they were kind of like losing that building. Like there were sometimes it was locked. Then like 1 week they would let them do shows. So like Prazak would hit up Stoney and be like, hey, we might need, because they're just like, well, he's from Chicago and like he might be a good baby face, or we just beat the shit out of him. We'll have him wrestle Brad and just, get whooped. So like Prazak was kind of interested in me, just I think because I was like a Chicago kid and I seemed like I might be nice potentially. So that happened a couple times. Then they ended up losing that building. And that's when kind of the Lincoln Center Armories, like that was probably like a 2-year span where that was like kind of their vibe. So I remember Robles, I was buddies with him. and he hit me up about the first Highland show, and he was just like, "Hey, do you have anything going on tomorrow?" I was like, "Oh, I'm working at Suncoast," and he was like, "Oh, okay," and he just took that as like, he never said like, "I would just not gone to work if I knew I could wrestle Friday." But I'll recover. I'm 18, or maybe not. Maybe. um, so then the following month, Stoney was supposed to wrestle Crash Holly. That was announced. Crash sadly passed away like 2 weeks before that show. So they were like, well, Stoney, you like trained with this kid. So they're like, we'll have you beat him up. So like, that's kind of like what we did. And that was like, kind of like me getting into being more in a regular rotation of things. After the show, Stoney was doing something, and he was like, I asked Hero and Nate, I was like, can I like hang out with you guys? Which is like not my personality, but they're like, I mean, it's just us. Like, I remember them like going back and forth singing the "Hey Hey Hey" part of the Breakfast Club song, "Don't You Forget About Me." And then they're like, "Trick, it's your turn," and they're like, "Oh, that was terrible. You're the one." Like,
you can't compete with singing and dancing with Nate. Just give that up right now.
Hero ain't bad. I was at a UWA song, which for some reason he sang "Don't You Want Me, Baby" afterwards, and like he did a great job. But so that, and then I wrestled Casanova that second night, and that went fine. And then I don't think there was anything really till I think TPI might have been like early November, and that was in Olytic, I think, that year. And then this was like kind of after that, and that was right before. So that was the November Highland show, and then the following Highland shows when Highland really popped, like because the first show I think did okay, and there was some weirdness there. Well, I mean, you guys might have. I know you had Chucky Smooth on. He might have chatted about that. Another weird thing is, and I was listening to you and Connor talking about the Cal Ripken thing. Do you remember like Josh Abercrombie getting kicked out of the locker room because he like said something bad about Cal Ripken?
I do not remember that, but
Okay.
it would not surprise me.
I
If somebody said something bad about Cal Ripken, it would have gotten them kicked out.
I heard about it, and then like I was like, oh, I don't know about this Josh Abercrombie guy. You know, he might be. And then I met him at a Bruce City wrestling show, and it was like, oh no, you're like my best friend. Like we were just like chain wrestling each other, like not on the show, just like in random spots, as grown men do. So then the December Highland show, they told me I was on it, but then Joey Legend and Crew Jones got added as like surprises. So I went to the show, and they're like, oh, we'll have you on Salem next week. Went to Salem. I wrestled Satoshi for like 4 or 5 minutes. And then that became, I think this was the first time we probably interacted. That became a tag match with the Lancaster twins.
Okay, there's a blast from the past. I think they might have been somebody else that started it with the We Are Family show or something.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So the big We Are Family, so that JV Insanity Bumblebee match with Brad and Boz was like kind of noteworthy from there. And then Cannon and Chaos, who had been training together for a few years, and Cannon was awesome then. They were kind of like the guys who kind of popped from it, because then Cannon, I don't think Chaos wanted to come back, but Cannon, there was like one of those like shows I almost got booked on. He wrestled Hero, but I think he got like knocked out because Hero like slipped on a moonsault that might have kneed him in the head. I think that was a thing that happened. And
that
then
sounds familiar.
Yeah, as Highland became a thing, that's when Cannon really got some steam on him. So, but that Salem show was also where I was told the next Highland show I would be wrestling Cash Flo.
We talked a little off air earlier in the day when we were setting this up about Cash Flo, and whether you still had some photos from your encounter with Cash, but I haven't heard back from Prazak. Manawa did not have the photos. You don't have the photos. I don't have the photos. So hopefully Prazak does, but you could go ahead and tell this
Maybe
story.
I mean, if we screenshot, I know afterwards Hero was nice and like raised my hand after. So I'm sure that's a pretty good shot of this. The ones Prazak took were just like me, like against a white wall, and like looked like they would be on an interesting website. So that double shot was Olytic the Friday, and then Highland was the Saturday. And in Olytic, I wasn't booked. I showed up, and at some point, like right before the show, and this was like a lot of my matches, like I was booked in the future, but this is how most of them worked. Stoney was like get over here, very aggressively pointing. And I go over there, he's like, you're on the show, you got to wrestle Satoshi in the first match. And it's like 7, and like the match is at 7:30. So it's kind of like run, get everything together, and like do a match. And I ended up beating him, which was like kind of surprising because like I wasn't booked like a half hour ago. But Olytic is one of the most. That is a locker room I will never forget, because there was like a toilet with no stalls. It was really, really cold, especially in like January, February. So yeah, Olytic, like lots of memories in Olytic, as we'll talk about more 04 things. The next day I wrestled the match with Cash, and he's very nice. And I saw what he did in Salem to Truth Martini, who was a grown man. And I was okay, this is going to be kind of interesting. And I don't remember us really calling anything. And I remember, I don't know, I remember he gave me a power slam, like a super power slam. Like he stood on the second rope with me and then jumped. And it was definitely there because Cash was like a big dude. But like there, but fine. And I think he gave me the leg drop too. Like one was like the finish and one was after the match. And both were like fine. So I was like, oh, cool. Literally the chops, like after a couple, I was just like, you just like go numb, it's just, it was such a like, I also think like me at 18, even though I like typically in matches, I like, if I'm a heel, I like to get chopped. I don't really like chopping people as a heel, but I like getting chopped because it's fun and people have fun. But like to go through that again, I was like, yeah, I was just like dumb and tough, like dumbly tough then, just like, also like there's some self-hatred stuff that's just like, you shouldn't be here, you deserve it. Like this is for making people watch you wrestle for the next 2 years. This is your penance. So that Hero comes and raises my hand after I go to the back. Everybody is just shocked by my chest. And it was funny to me because we'll talk later about like the second one we did with Cash. And that one wasn't nearly as bad, because something that was interesting was like my chest healed very quickly. So I just like wore like a shirt around my house for a couple days. Because I remember the next week, Danny Daniels is like, I want to show you off to my wife and show her what happened to you. And I like, my chest was like normal. He's like, no, oh shit, I can't even do that.
Damn it.
You didn't do that right. But after the second match with Cash, which wasn't as many chops, my chest wasn't nearly as bad. Abby was on that show, and I remember he looked at my chest and like his eyes bulged, and then he gave me a thumbs up, and I was like, man, for that gentleman and being
for Abby to be impressed, nice,
or taken back by something. So then did that. Went in the back and like did some like shows, kind of working up the stuff. the following February, I was supposed to be on the Highland show, but so this is where, because IWA, like, for a second had like a working agreement with XPW when they were kind of taking over the ECW arena. Hero like wrestled Devin Storm on one of their shows, and it was just like a short thing. Because then by like a few days, not very long after that, or that might have been like '02, but there was something weird. But oh, maybe I'm wrong. I think an MLW show might have gotten canceled, and that's why M-Dog and Josh Prohibition were on the February Highland show, like kind of last minute. And I think they wrestled the wild cards, and it was potentially going to be me and Satoshi. So that got switched, and like Prazak's being very nice. He's like, "You're going to do a promo at Fannin. You're still on the show in promo form." And I was like, I probably shouldn't be on the show. Like, it's fine. And we did our first thing together because you were Cash's manager in that last match. As I was a thorn in your side, your prized proteges, the Lancaster twins, and then you send Cash Flo after me.
Some prize, huh?
And then, so we did that. And the thing with the promo is, like, I put my IWA career on the line, I believe, for the match that was supposed to be with Cash, the next Highland show. Then there was like a show in Salem. I wrestled Boz the next day, and I remember Ian telling me, like, he's like, "I want to book you like Mikey Whipwreck." He's like, "'Cause you kind of remind me of Mikey." And I was like, "You're very nice. You don't have to like lie to me. You know, like, I'm gonna be here and, you know, take whatever you pay me. Like, you know, I'm still an 18-year-old, but." I was like, "That's nice that you have an idea." But then that March show, Cash got hurt because it was supposed to be Cash. We did the Olytic show we set up with Cash and Road Dogg. So right. Olytic, I was tagging with Eddie Venom against the Highlanders. We did that match. Cash came out and Road Dogg made the save. And then we cut the promo for the next Olytic show. But there was like the caveat, if I would have lost the night before, we went, you know, somebody else would have tagged with Road Dogg. And it's supposed to be against you and Cash. Cash got hurt, so I was in a four-way that Highland show with, I think, Frankie DeFace, Crew Jones, and Satoshi. I don't remember. I'm guessing Satoshi won because he was awesome. The only thing I remember about that match is we were like doing a cute spot, and I put Crew in a dragon sleeper. And he's like, "Then I'll knee you in the head." And he had this giant metal brace on his knee, and he just bumped me in the head, in the back. And I was just like, I almost just got knocked out, like, calling a match, which doesn't typically happen.
No, that does not typically happen.
I do have another story where it almost happened later in this. But so we did that match, and then you and I, we did the tag match with me and Road Dogg, where he affectionately called me Bones Malone.
Yeah.
As from the
available on Dark Mark Video with.
Then against you and Boz, I think we did like a little powder thing at the end. Boz got the powder, took the pump handle slam. We won.
No, I took it.
Oh, you took it. Okay. Did you powder Boz and then you took it?
I powdered myself.
Okay.
The bag exploded on me because I had the powder in a bag, and the Ziploc bag would not open. So then when I yanked it too hard, and everything just shot up into my face, exploded into me. For 3 days, I would cough, and you could see like chalk and powder come out of my mouth as I coughed. I thought I had like the maybe white lung instead of black lung for like the coal miners. After that. And to this day, Patty just laughs her ass off at that whole CKO, because that was when I was supposed to like give the elbow drop to try to break up the pin attempt, and I ended up sitting on Boz's face and almost breaking his nose instead of doing an elbow drop. And
Boz was in the ring. Patty was definitely watching. That was
yes. And wow. So she saw that, it just cracked up, died laughing, and then Prazak, Ian, and Patty just laughing hysterically on commentary as I'm swallowing all the chalk and powder from that damn baby powder, and And then, so yeah, I think the Road Dogg ends up giving me the pump handle slam and pinning me
Okay.
as
And
the
like
finish
Eric,
to that.
did you do the Henning neck snap to
I
me?
did. I did.
Suplex. And you were dressed as was it Jay Prodigy?
It might have been.
Okay. I remember one of your friends had passed who I think was like an older IWA fella, and
Yeah,
you're
it's
like,
Jay Prodigy. That could have been. I might have dressed like him
yeah.
in that. I can't remember what I wore in that match, but yeah, he was one of the first ones that passed away that I had ever managed.
Okay.
Was Jay Prodigy, and I think he won the light heavyweight title twice with me managing him.
Okay.
And so it might have been right around that time that he passed. So it could have been, yeah, that could have been like my tribute to Jay Prodigy. And then as a rib on me, he wouldn't let the bag of powder open up and,
Yeah. So
ended up getting me with that.
am I the first person on the show who's actually had a match with you?
Probably, well, no, no. Because Jimmy Jacobs was there was a couple of tag matches that, yeah, because it was like the first 3 years I had no matches in my career. Then he made me wrestle Prazak because he had promised like 9 matches, but he only had 8. And for the one time in his life, he decided he wanted to tell the truth. So he was like, "Oh, you and Prazak have to wrestle next week because I promised 9 matches and I only have 8." And I'm like, I have not had 1 second of training, and you're going to put in like Dave is trying to teach me how to lock up as his music's playing before we go into the ring because he's like, I want this to at least be passable.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, you just better pick up everything that's out there and hit me with it or else it's going to suck.
Yeah, we don't want lots of things, Dave.
And then I don't, after that was like such a train wreck. Didn't have like another match for like 4 years. Then that was when he threw, and then all of a sudden I've got the tag match with you and Road Dogg. I've got the barbed wire match in Highland where I got to take the 4 finishers and then had to eat a chair shot from Balls Mahoney because Boz and Brad and Carmine ran off and left and no one took a chair shot. So, and Pondo's like choking me going, Balls didn't get to hit anybody with a chair shot. Will you let him hit you? And I'm like, are you out of your fucking mind? And he goes, he'll take it easy on you. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And granted, he did take it easy on me for him.
Yeah.
He didn't hit me like I was Masato Tanaka. He didn't hit me like that. But even Balls Mahoney taking it easy on me, that chair shot killed me.
Yeah.
I was like, no. And then there was like another big long break after that. And then like the last year that I was in IWA, I think me and Dingo were on damn tag matches galore. Like every time I turned around, and I'm like, what in the God's name of hell? How did I like double my match? I went from like 4 to 8 in 1 year.
It was like that July 4th.
Yeah, it was like that July 4th thing. I'm like, what the hell? Nobody wants to see me in all these damn matches. So I know there was a me and Dingo against Drake Younger and Jimmy Jacobs. And I think there might have been another tag that Jimmy was involved. So Jimmy was the first one that was on that had actually been in a match with me. And now you're the second. And you'll probably be the last because I don't foresee any world in which Ian Rotten is on my podcast. And I don't see any world in which, I've asked Dave to do it, and Dave's like, well, he doesn't. He always feels bad after he like says something that he wishes that he hadn't said on a podcast. And I'm like, just come on, who's going to hear it? Who's going to hear it? Just come on.
My plan is just to say mean things about myself. I think that'll be enough for everybody.
Well, hey, that's all I've done is say mean things about myself on here, and the fans seem to like it. So, maybe that's the secret to success.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was like, we had our thing like March vote for. I wrestled Zach Gowen for the first time at Simply the Best the following month, and it was like a 3-minute match. It was like really nothing to it. Like him and Shelly just beat me up afterwards. I wrestled Zach like a lot, and it was always like amazing to like because I wrestled him there, and I wrestled him at another independent promotion, a couple independent promotions, and like just an amazing, like always just an amazing athlete, and just super. I'm glad like that was probably the most interesting part of his life, and he was awesome then. So like I can only imagine now, because we wrestled once in Rensselaer, the famed Rensselaer, and I remember being like, "Hey, do you want to like I'll feed to the ropes like you're gonna choke me, but you call for a 619, and then after people pop, then you just start choking me." And he was like, "Whatever, you dumb kid, like I'll do your dumb idea." And then we did it, and it like was cute. And then I think like one of the Michigan guys was like, "Hey Zach, that was a really good idea," and he's like, "Thanks, baby. I thought of it this morning." And like, he also both times the finish was him hitting me with his leg. And he was like, like the first thing I went up to him, he's trying to ask me if like I'm okay, and I was like, "Thank you very much. Are you okay?" Blah blah blah. And he like turns Ian. He's like, "I just killed this kid with my leg," and he's just thanking me like like. And Ian's like, "Yeah, Trick like is like a weird sort of like indestructible, like who just, and it's just fear of like making people mad. Like it's just." I'm so afraid of making people mad that like pain kind of went away.
Well, question for you. We glossed over the Trick versus the Fannin Family kind of stuff.
What? Yeah.
For the most part. One thing that I sort of liked around that time is, as I had mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, this was all like during the build up to War Games when a lot of this stuff was going on. And, I'm fighting for control of the company, and I'm in the main event going against Ian and all of his, Dusty, Funk, all these people that he keeps bringing in. And we're doing this main event stuff. And then I'm also, every one of my guys is losing to Trick Davis in like the opener, second match of the show or whatever. And I know like Cash and some of the others was like, why are we putting this kid over if we're also like trying, in the main trying to get control of the company? Isn't it kind of counterproductive? And it's like, well, you still got to build the other people up. And we're elevating him and getting him some recognition and helping him out. It's not hurting us. The crowd's still into the, main event aspect of the War Games. And I just remember there was like a poll that one of the fans put on the message board, IWA message board, leading up to War Games. And they were like, who do you think is going to win? Or like, who do you want to win? So it was like Schumann, me, or Ian. And like, it was either a tie between me and Ian, or like I had like 2 or 3 more votes than Ian did. And like, Ian got so pissed off. And he's, because I know he was like, for him, he was wanting to put me, and I've said it 100 times on this podcast, like, he wanted to put me in my place and show that, he's the boss. So anybody that thought that he was going to, even in kayfabe, relinquish control of that company and have me in charge was hilarious. And like, the more that poll went on, was like the more he had me, he put me with the Lancasters, that he's like okay, well now Trick's going to beat Cash, and now Trick is going to beat Boz, and now Trick is going to beat every damn person that you've got, and the fact that the poll wouldn't change, it made him so damn mad, and it would just crack me up every time. Like, yep, doesn't I can go out there and lose every damn match because I was losing every match to you. I was losing every match to him because he was putting himself over in every one of those tag matches. I think, no matter what, I was losing every single match. And then yet at the end, the people were like, oh, we think he might win at War Games. And I'm like, you guys are delusional, or maybe they all hated me so much and wanted me to lose so much that they kept saying that on the poll, knowing that it would make him mad. But what were you thinking as you're like, as a young guy on the shows, as small as you were at that point, because you were still, I don't think you were still 112 pounds at that point, but
Like
you're still so much, like, you're not even as big as Cash Flo's leg,
Yeah.
and then you're out there getting all these wins and stuff. What was that like in your mind as you're going through it?
I like always thought I was gonna get fired like every show, so I had that going for me. Then because there was like a little time where like Stoney got taken off shows. It was like for like a month or two, and then he came back with you as his manager. And I wrestled Murat Bosphorus on one of those shows, which something like, and I get like why people do it, but like everybody, the whole thing about like Ian never paid anyone thing that people talk about a lot. Like I can remember 3 times I didn't get paid, and I wrestled for him a lot. So I think it's funny when like people who never worked there are like, oh yeah, you never get paid there. I was like, at one point, Chandler and I were doing pretty good, but we don't have to talk. But that Murat match, I wasn't booked, and then I got booked like last second, wrestled him. That was one of them. And then, so I was just always afraid of getting fired, especially when Stoney like kind of got let go-ish for a short amount of time. Then in June, we did the second Cash match, but that's when the NWA thing kind of started. So we did a finish. We did it with that match and the Stoney match where they just beat me up so bad they got DQ'd. So it was like kind of like weirdish. But I was like, oh, I didn't care. Like they were bookings, and
But as you had mentioned, though, he told you that he saw you as the Mikey Whipwreck, and that is how the Mikey Whipwreck stuff sort of went with ECW. And I actually liked that stuff when Mikey was the TV champ at ECW, and he was afraid of everybody. And they would like always be like, okay, well, next week, Mikey, you are wrestling Mr. Hughes. Next week, you're wrestling Kevin Sullivan. And like every week he would start crying when they would say who he'd have to wrestle. And the next week he'd be like, please take the title. And they just beat him so bad that they would end up getting disqualified, and he'd still keep the title the next week. So I can sort of see the parallel there, but yeah. I can't imagine being on the receiving end of the beatings every time. I can't see that being a great experience.
We did the Boz match, and that was like when you like rented out. I think you rented out Boz from Carmine for that one, because like I remember you went to the back and got Boz, and like Carmine was telling some joke that probably wouldn't be allowed and now, and then brought Boz back, and I had a chain in my like kick pad. I had the plastic bag. I had something else. And I was like, oh man, it's wild. I'm doing like all these things. And I think because I had the plastic bag on my leg, and it's August, so I've been sweating. When I went to take it out, it didn't open. So I just like put it around his neck. So kind of the same thing. But I remember talking to Hero after the match, because Ian had like, it was interesting the thing he had like go-tos for, he used a lot, like the double pin on the O'Connor with the guy putting the first time I saw that, I was like, that's amazing. But you see it like 4 times, and it's like I never see that, and it would have been a good false finish for an IWA show then, because it like, oh, you never see this. I remember Brandon and like Abercrombie, the new one was like, you see it sometimes in three ways now, the like double backslide and you roll them over. But I think Ian had Hero and Simon Says wrestle, and he did all the same things. He did the chain and the boot, he did the bag over the head, and Hero's like, oh, those are like just his things that he has people like little guy wrestle big guy, do all these, you know.
Right.
But yeah, just constantly thinking I was gonna get fired most of the time. Like that was mostly, you know, most of my mind. Yeah, that was like until like we won the tag titles the following year, I kind of felt safe-ish. But yeah, that's like just being 19 and just not thinking like I was gonna get booked the next show.
I can understand that. I can understand that. But he was too busy, you know, you're worried about getting fired, and it's, you know, Bull Payne, Mitch Page, Cash Flow, you know, it was everybody else that was, we were the ones getting fired every other show, and then you would always be back the next show. So you even if he had said you're fired, you'd have been back in inside of 2 months, you'd have been back.
Yeah, I've been the first time I got fired was after TPI 06, and I was gone for like 2 years, and then I got fired in 09, but I never actually missed a show. I was just booked. It was like he had Mickey fire me because he was in Europe, and then he called me the next week to rehire me, you know. Then there was one point like they stopped running shows in Joliet, and like, but he fired me, but then we were on a show together in like Davenport, and like had just become a trainer, and like it was the first summer I was a trainer, so I was working out hard, and he rehired me. I think I had Young Lions Cup like that following month, so it was like I don't even think he had shows, but he fired and rehired me at one point. But you know, you always come back.
Yeah. Yep.
Going with because I heard you and Connor talking about the Candido thing and TPI 04 and like how crazy that show was. The coolest thing about that Candido spot is I don't think we use that door for anything else.
No, I don't think we ever used it for anything. We didn't. It was just a door that was there, and yeah, we had thought long and hard about how we were going to do it and what the best way to do it would be. And I can't remember who came up with the idea, but we really liked it of like, I'm just going to run out this random door and he's going to be there. And I don't know how, like what the explanation, like I just have him out in this hallway, and I knew that I was going to get Ian Rotten to chase me during the match at some point for him to like, I don't know exactly the how the psychology works there, but you know, it still, it made for the great spot. And the pop, once the crowd realized like who it was and what was going on, and then it turned out real good.
Yeah, TPI night 2 was nuts. I don't remember the match listing, but I think like somehow Brian, like there were like 8, I think there were like 20 matches or something, but like all of Brian's were in like the last 8. Like he like Joe wrestled first and then had a long time, and then he did his quick match with Brain Man, and it was like Brian had like a 20-minute match with Quack and then another long match. He might have wrestled Aries. Oh no, Aries was in a 6-man or in a tag match, and then he had another long match. And he was like, "How did he get this? Like they're against me." Because that was the night I did. It was me, Team Fist versus Jig. That was Sweeney's IWA debut, I believe, and Hollow Wicked. And like we were at insert Highland restaurant the night before, and Dave was like, "Oh, we got I think the wild cards won the belts in the opener in like a 3-way tag." He's like, "We got the wild cards doing that. Quack's in the tournament." It's like we have 5 Chikara people, and I was like, Well, I'm not a Chikara person. I had debuted there the month before, wrestling Blackjack, who's one of my all-time favorite humans, who I only knew for like a year. Uh, we're still like Facebook friends and stuff. And I was like, we could probably do a 6-man tag. Like he heard it, and he was just like, shut the fuck up. And then like, and then the next day he comes up to me, he's like, oh, so you're 6-man tag. And I was like, oh, like there was one time that happened too, right after Trevor and Ricochet and Chuck Taylor debuted the first show at Low Key, where I was like, why don't you, like, we're all in that ladder match together next week. Why don't we all wrestle the Tomasellis? And Ian was like, oh yeah, we're gonna do that match. But then we did that, so it was like, I was like,
that was a big staple of Ian Rotten. Like, I would come up with something, or somebody else would come up with something and say it, and he'd look at you and he'd go, "That's a good idea. Not going to do it, but that's a good idea." And then like 2 weeks later, he would do it and pass it off as his own thing. And we're like, okay, whatever, as long as it gets done, I guess.
We had people who, like, me and Chandler got like Bryce booked for a show, and Ian wasn't like he didn't really want to use Bryce at the time. And we're like, oh, it'd be easier for our carload if we could bring him. And he's like, oh, okay. And then Bryce and Chandler are winning the main event of the show. And it was like, oh, like, it's like you went from this to like, oh, they're going to win the main event. One of the Highland things that I always remember, the end of the December show when Terry Funk was there, who I believe was born in Highland, all the baby faces were supposed to go out there after you guys like beat him up. And Terry Funk has a garbage bag, and it's him, Ian, and I believe Danny in the ring. And he won't let us in the ring. Like, the other baby faces are coming. And I was just like looking at him, both terrified and like, oh, this is why he's the best at this. Like, he is able to make this so real right now. Like, we can't.
But he's just swinging that garbage bag.
I was like, oh, that's why he's the best ever. Like, because what he's doing right now and can do at any point in his life. And I've never forgot that like, it was like, oh, that's like what you need to be able to do. And he can do it at a drop of a hat.
Well, and I've talked about it on this podcast before with when he came in. You mentioned, I don't know if it was either Highland or Hammond.
Oh, Hammond, yeah.
That he was born in. So he had went and like visited some family that had still was like living there or something.
I think his wife was with him too, probably because like so close.
Yeah. So then, he comes into the building and he just walks up to me and he's like, young man, I understand that Dusty Rhodes was here last month. And I'm like, yes, he was. Well, what did he do? And, I'm like, oh, well, he brawled all over the building. He bled. All right, young man, stop right there. I know what I need to do. And it's like, I'm going to beat that yellow egg sucking dog. I'm going to outdo him. And like, I was like, this is perfection, exactly how you would want it to go. But then in the back, like, when he's sitting there and he's talking to me and trying to figure, he's like, okay, well, what are we going to do with you? And, and then once he heard that, Dusty gave me the bionic elbow the month before, he was just dead set that he was going to let me do something to him so that I could get my heat back. And I'm like, I don't want to.
Heard you got a mean lockup.
Yeah. I'm like, what do you, I'm like, he's like, what do you do? And I'm like, well, I don't really do anything. And so then we came up with this where like I hit him with the briefcase and I was like, well, thank you very much for that. I much rather would have taken a Terry Funk pile driver, maybe not on the floor, but give me a pile, do something. But I was like, I want you to go. You're going over on me, and he's like, I'm already winning the match. I don't. And just the fact that he was, he's like, you're the one that's here every month. You're the one that you need your heat, and I'm like, okay, well, you're the legend. We'll do what you say, but
I remember when I met him, I was at the back door with the wild cards. They were smoking, and I was watching. And he like shook all our hands. We all introduced ourselves, and we went into the building, and we went in the locker room. And he went to because there was the one locker room. There was like the busy locker room at Highland, and then there was the other one that like more namey people would typically be in. So he came to our locker, the kind of more populated locker room, and he like sees Blackjack. He's like, "Hey, I'm Terry Funk," and like, and is saying hi to like him and then King. So when I see him, I was like, "Hi, I'm Tom." Like again, and he goes, "Ah, Tom." I go to shake his hand again, and he goes, "Tom, I already met you. I'm not that old."
That's great.
Then we did that, and then the following month we did the Freebird Rule thing you were chatting about.
Yeah.
Where Blackjack had sadly quit wrestling, and then I think it was King and Stoney.
It was either Stone or BJ.
Yeah, I think it might have been Stoney.
Yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah. Because I think we did so in Rensselaer a few weeks earlier. Boz and I just tagged as kind of like a throwaway, like, oh, we'll put Trick with Boz, and we wrestled 2 of the ROH kids. Davey Andrews clotheslined me so hard he tore his pec, and which we were buddies after. Like I was like checking up on him after. I felt bad, but I was like, you just hit me ridiculously hard, which was fine. But Ian like thought we got a really good reaction. So I remember there was like a no limits like weekend. So we did that, and we're all like at the it's like me, Delirious, Seidel, Daisy, the crew. We're in the hotel room with Ian, and they're doing things, which is very legal now. It's like, I think it's funny people still talk about smoking pot like it's like an outlaw thing to do. And I was like, I think like every 60-year-old I know smokes pot, but like on the street, but like you could still act like it's some outlaw, interesting activity. So we're talking, Ian's like, people are going to shit when Trick Davis and Ryan Boz win the tag belts next week. And I was like, oh, and then I was like, he's like, yeah, you're going to come, jump off the cage, and then, blah, 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 blah. You're going to join the match because it's like, since King was able to do the Freebird Rule, they said Brad and Boz could do it. And then Brad got hurt in the midst of the match. So I was kind of like, oh, am I doing anything else on the show, boss? And he was like, no. And just very dismissively.
No.
I was like, okay, because then I'm like, it's kind of heelish then for us to do that if I'm just like a fresh guy. But whatever. And then I think a few days later, I saw they announced me versus Hero for the first time. We wrestled the Totally Tool show. This would be the first time at IWA. And we had a match, as Chris did. He put me through the ringer, which was fun and helped me learn lots of things. He's the best. And he, I ended up beating him. I think he went for like a suplex, and I got him with a small package. Because I think it was like he wanted us to like be kind of trading, and then like we would break off, and he'd like go to the crowd, and I'd roll him up really quick, and he's like, well, now I'm going to beat the shit out of you. And that was kind of the thing with the match. So small package, boom. And then they're like, you're going to be on commentary with Prazak during the tag match and the tag cage match. And I had been wanting to do commentary for a year. Like that was like my goal. And Prazak was like, you're just going to say thingy and you're going to mumble a bunch. We don't want you on there. And then like I did a fine job. And then I was like, said something, I hit some line, I was like, all right, I'm going to get out of here really quick, Dave. And I climbed up the cage, dove off the top of the cage. We hit like a splash on your 2 guys. One was definitely Kingston. We did Boz. It was a double team I actually came up with, like tagging with Danny Daniels, and I used it with Brandon too. But it was Boz would put me in an electric chair and pop me over, and I double stomped the person, and we got the pin, and that's how we won the tag belts. And yeah, so then like we were like the Freebird champs. I mostly tagged with Boz when we did that stuff. I tagged with Brad like once, but I saw. Well, I think the next Highland show is like Brad and I versus Chandler and Stoney, with us being connected, and we were doing the next week after Highland. There's lots of stuff going on in my brain, but when you jump off a steel cage, you kind of remember it. So there was a steel cage main event that Ian was in and some of your guys, and you were beating him down after, and I was on commentary once again, and I was wearing my knee pads under my jeans, and there was like not many people there, and I had to do the jump off the cage again. You guys were very nice and caught me very safely, but I was like, oh, to do commentary, I have to jump off a steel cage first, otherwise Dave will not allow it. And I think there was a Rensselaer show, like the next show, and like there was like a break, and he's like, "So you're gonna come do commentary?" And I was like, "Oh, okay." And like then I was in. So
Okay, and I just looked it up. It was Stoney. You were right.
yeah, a crazy one was me and Chandler had a short match because I wrestled him at like the whatever anniversary show was October of '04. And then I beat him in like 3 minutes or something. And I think that was right.
Yeah, it was the 8th anniversary show with Dusty.
Yeah. So the next show, I think, is kind of when you and Chandler's thing started, because I went to dive on him, and Cash was behind the door to the entrance. As I'm in the air, Cash runs and catches me off the top rope to the floor and runs me into the post. And then we did me and Corporal. So it was like Cash was a surprise, and then Corporal was a surprise. And then we did like a quick tag match out of that. And but I remember being like, how is Cash gonna catch me? And it's like he's a very, very strong human, and I am a dainty being. So it was for him to do. But just the timing, I remember being a little timid about. And then Boz and I were tag champs kind of through, and Brad, till like the Something to Prove show. And that was weird because that like we ended up losing the belts. I remember I got knocked out because the Iron Saints did like the like side slam leg drop piece, but like Vito just I take him from other times and it was fine, but he just like sat on my head. So there's like a part where Boz is gonna like awesome bomb me to the floor, and you just see him just like, I have no idea. And he's like, get over here. He's like, it still throws me out. But I think that was the last time we kind of interacted. And then because we didn't really have anything to do with the War Games match, which was kind of weird.
Yeah, with as much as was going on and how much we interacted going up to it. But yeah, then like you had nothing, didn't really end up having anything to do with that War Games match. And then I was pretty much, I was done for quite a while after that. One of the things that you had written down, like, behind the scenes here, Trick helped out by giving me an outline of things to discuss. And, it's funny how you talked about Prazak saying how you were just going to get on commentary and say thingy. You send me an outline, and the first line is outline thingy.
And I'm reverting. I'm thinking a lot about '04. I'm going back to kind of how things were.
But one of the things you had on there was the you have the New Jack backstage in Highland with the holy shit face. So I've talked about this. Manawa's talked about this. You're somebody else that was there and involved in the match that was coming up right after this. out of the intermission. So I will let you tell your memories of the backstage.
So the part that I think I remember that probably a lot of people don't is there was a weird thing, and it might have been one of the things that really pissed you off besides all the other stuff. But New Jack said he told Larry Sweeney to tie his boot. And Sweeney was new to the business, but he was a grown up. He was like 25, 26. And he was just like, huh? Like he just like kind of reacted, and New Jack like kind of like snapped. And then Hero was like Hero was like bent down there anyways. Like, oh, I got it. You know, just like trying to look out for his student. But like I
So
remember
he told Sweeney to tie his boot,
yeah,
New Jack's boot. Okay.
yeah. And
So I don't remember this part.
yeah, yeah. So that was like, oh, like that was almost a thing. And then I remember he had a shredder glove. Like, it's like one of the weapons he had with him. Like it had just two knives. Like I don't know how. Like obviously the guy had to like bring it here, but like it was literally like what like Shredder would wear in like a Ninja Turtles movie, and to make it sound really dangerous, but it was crazy. It was just like a knife you could put your hand in that had two real blades on it. And like, did he even do anything on the show, or did he just kind of cut his drunk promo?
He wrestled somebody at the end of that night.
Okay.
Yeah, he wrestled somebody. Um, maybe Corporal. I don't. I don't even. Yeah, I don't even remember now.
Yeah, that was definitely wild.
But yeah, I can't. I couldn't remember. I don't remember him doing the that to Sweeney.
Mad about all the other countless things because Ian was like in Germany then, right?
He was somewhere. He was not at the show, so I had to run the show, and then was not very happy at all with the way that he was trying to treat me. And so Hero had to stop Sweeney from going after him, and then he had to stop me from going.
Yeah.
Hero was a busy man that night.
Oh, I mean, we're going to talk about more things, but one of the craziest Hero stories is, I don't know if you were at this show. It was a Midlow show, October of 2005, and I could talk about like what was actually going on wrestling wise later. But Hero was going to wrestle Merrick Brave. Ian, I think Nate did the chair salt and chipped his tooth. So you fuck your teeth up, you're going to be in a certain mental state after. And then him and Nate and Ian kind of get into it. And they start yelling at each other. And then Ian's like, I'm going to stab you, motherfucker. And he had a fork. Hero puts Ian in a waistlock. Ian stabs Hero in the arm. Hero does not react. I think this was 2 days after that Morris show that we were talking about earlier, the second one. Hero does not react. They stop yelling at each other. You know, whatever. And then Hero just like turns to Merrick Brave and is like, yeah, so let's get your shine together.
Good grief. Yeah, I don't know if I was there.
What's up?
I definitely wasn't there, and I definitely wasn't there when as that happened, because I definitely don't remember that scene, and I don't think Nate brought that up on when he was on the episode.
He didn't get stabbed, so that's probably why he didn't.
Yeah. Yeah. So many weird things have happened in an IWA locker room through the years. That's for sure. So then we've got, what are your memories of wrestling Johnny Storm?
So that was like interesting. That was like right before I turned 20. So maybe it's Simply the Best. It was the first, I think that was the first Midlow show. So like Punk and Jimmy was the main. And it was just funny to me because I like knew him and I liked his stuff. But like in the back, he wanted to like go through everything like full tilt. So like he was doing something. He's like, then I'll bulldog you, and like on his, he would like hit you with his foot a couple times, and then bulldog you on his knee. And I was like, okay, I just like went like that, which is like kind of what you would do in a match. And he's like, no, like your timing's terrible. Like you need to. Like, I was like, oh. And then his finish was like the Matt Seidel, the Here It Is driver, and he wanted me to land it on my feet, but he wanted me to land it on my feet in the locker room. So like we did it, and I like kicked a bulletin board, and like I hurt my foot doing that, and I was like, what are And then he had another thing that was like a Japanese arm drag off the second rope, and I was like, okay, like I kind of know I could get the sense of how this goes. And he was like, no, no, your timing is terrible. And like, we're not in the ring. We're not. So we have the match. It's a fun match. It's totally fine. And like that, he wasn't used to IWA's ropes. So like for that, like Japanese arm drag, I actually like, he was kind of slipping and I grabbed him and like kind of locked him. And then we went, and it was just like almost like a Spanish fly, but a Japanese arm drag. So it was like nice to me. Like when you have these situations where it's like, you're like it's like we could just wrestle and it'll be fun, and then like you have people's respect, which is great. So he ended up staying at my house the next day, and my mom like drove him to the airport because him and Sami Zayn got kicked out of their hotel for something, but then they just came to my house, and like Sammy's like flight was like at night, so he just stayed at my house like all day, and we watched like Adam West's Batman show. So that was an interesting weekend. Brandon and I wrestled the Iron Saints in a TLC match, I think, or maybe it was just a tables match. And that would end up being that April show would end up being the last Highland show.
Yeah, that was the beginning of the end, really, of that really great run that we were on at that point. Losing the Highland building was just deflated everything and really set us back. And I don't think we really ever recovered from that.
Yeah, that's like that first Hammond show drew like really well. I wrestled Danny on that, and that was really fun. And that drew really well. And then we were kind of doing mid low, but it definitely like it was nice to have that one spot like that was locked in. Like this is the show
Right.
to be.
Right. Yeah, I think I've said it on other, like that was our ECW arena show every time, you'd look forward to that Highland show every month, no matter how bad some of those spot shows in middle of nowheresville would go. You always had you knew that Highland was going to be great when you
With
got there.
wrestling at all those armories really makes me appreciate now that most shows are somewhere you can walk and get food. There was just like you were kind of in the middle of nowheresville,
Yeah.
like a different animal of like, and there was no Uber Eats, so it's just like, oh, we're not gonna get to the restaurant till 5 a.m.
Right. Yeah, and like on show days, I'd be so damn hangry because, you know, you'd eat at like maybe 11 a.m. and then you'd have to like get to the show and do all the setting up and everything else. And then by the time show, so you'd go from like noon to like 3 a.m., 4 a.m. before you could eat again. And you'd just be exhausted, tired, starving to death, and
Oh man,
not a great lifestyle. What are your memories of tagging with Axel the night after Candido passed away?
that was. I mean, I remember that day really well because the Chikara guys were on MAW. They were on Carmine's show, but they came to my house and like we watched Hero. Like we watched like Hero's match with Jimmy, and he was like, "Oh, Candido called that finish." And the night before, I remember Candido had this. I've seen it a couple times. He did it. He was in like a 5-way with Cannon from that Midlow show, and I've seen him in like an ECW match he has with Jamie Dundee, where he takes an arm drag, but he does like a 450 bump. Like he didn't do it every time, but it was like something he could do because he was just like a freak athlete. So like, and he was just starting to like really, I don't know, he was just starting to like really open up to the guys and kind of become like a mentor to a lot of people. So that like hit a lot of us hard. And then obviously Axel, who was like his friend, um,
Mhm.
was, I think Sabu was at that show, but I think Sabu had something going on where he had like, he couldn't wrestle, but he was at the show too. And like Axel, it was me and him versus Priest and Bryce. And Axel was just like, we're going to go out there. We're going to do 5 minutes when you're doing shit. Like, just angrily calling this match. And I'm just like, okay, like I know kind of what you're going, or I don't, but like, I'm going to accept you're the veteran and you're going through a terrible situation. This is what we're going to do. So we have the match, and he said we weren't going to go more than 5 minutes. And like, me and Bryce do a little cute something maybe, and then like him and Priest are kind of messing around, and I'm like I'm playing off what he's saying to Priest, and then when the crowd's getting into it, they put a good heat on me. He gets a good comeback. I hit a cool move for the finish, and like just how elated he was after that match, it's like something I've never forgotten because he was like, we had heat, we did this, we did comedy, but then you guys did this, and then this and that, and it's just like for someone to go through something so like tragic and be able to just like change their complete mood by just like having a wrestling match was like something I never forgot. And then because of that, like I think he passed in like 13 for like every time I saw him, like after he just was like he called me his partner from that we tagged once. He always called me his tag partner. Um and like I remember like I had a 30-minute match with Hero in '06, and it was an Iron Man match, even though we wrestled like 26 minutes the month before. Then we had the 30-minute Iron Man match. And he was just like, he's talking about something. He's like, oh, what are you doing? I was like, I'm wrestling Hero in like a 30-minute Iron Man match. He's like, well, you got great cardio, like blah, blah, blah. I was like, I do? Like, it just, I remember one time in Colgate, he called something for a finish, and I was like, oh, that's cool. I was like, I think tonight I'm going to do this. It was like, I hit like a reverse Rana on Bucky Collins, and Reed rolled me up for the pin on like a blind tag. And like, he came to me after, he's like, your finish was way better than mine. Just like, just, I don't know, he's just super cool. And him and Manawa, like that's a I mean, most times after 2006 are forgotten IWA times. But like him and Manawa were a great commentary team, like on calling those Colgate shows together.
Yeah, to this day I've never watched any of those shows after I left, but I can just imagine how good those two would have been together on commentary. Axel was just fantastic when he was in his right mind. He was fantastic. And the stuff with Candido, I've talked about it before, but that was just such a rough day. And another show where like Ian was out of the country, overseas, and it was like every time he went on one of those overseas stuff, just shit went down. Kicked out of Kentucky, Candido passes. Just it was always something when he was on those trips. But like it will haunt me to the day I die. The fact that I had to go pick up Billy Gunn from the airport that morning for the show, and he gets off the plane, and 2005 word doesn't travel as quickly. It doesn't travel as quickly as it does now, and
there was no MySpace app.
Right. And, he gets off the plane. I go to pick him up, and he's like, hey, Jimmy, what time's Candido land? And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, what time we get in Candido? I want to see Chris. And I was like, you don't know? And so I had to be the one to tell him. And he thought that I was like ribbing him, and I'm like, this is not the kind of a rib that you would play on somebody. And then he's like, stops and he makes a couple of phone calls, and just, you could just, like, being the person that had to rip his heart out, like that. And not that, and I wasn't even, I was tore up myself, so then having to do that. And it was just one of the, like I said, it will haunt me in my nightmares to the day that I die, having to like relive that moment. And it was just, things were, I've said it before, things were never the same after that, because Candido was the last thing that was like keeping me sane at the shows, was the fun of traveling with him and being around him. So without him, it was like I couldn't get out of there fast enough after that. But to try to pick things up a little bit so we're not on such a down note, be watching Joe Necro, what were your thoughts in the sold out Eagles nest where we all were watching that? What were your thoughts on that?
I mean, that's probably the coolest thing I've done. Like, just being able to be there, and like, I think that was the first time I ever wrestled. I might have wrestled there a few more times after. Yeah, I definitely did. But like, just the energy there, and like Punk yelling about how Rob Naylor booked the match, and like all this, like, just all of the energy, and just, like when he's hitting. I mean, that's a lot of people's favorite match, and it definitely makes sense. And it's just like, that's another thing. It's like, I'll never forget. Just and I was like probably concussed when I watched it too, and I still never forgot like any of that.
Yeah, it's still, if somebody asks me what the best match was in IWA, that's always that's the go-to. That's the answer. And like, I knew that it had a lore amongst us, like the IWA crew and the IWA fans. I knew it had a lore behind it with us. But then, in like the last year or so, when I finally started getting back into a wrestling mindset and like following things on Twitter and interacting and just seeing things, like, I know in the past year they did it was like the top 100 matches of all time, and like the internet fans were like voting on it. And like, it floored me that Joe Necro it was like number 5. It was in the top 10, but it was like number 5. And somebody had told me that it was even higher the last time that they had done it, but like a match or two since the last time had like knocked it down a peg, but it was still like in the top 10. And I was like, I can't believe that it made that much of an impact with that many people. But yeah, just that was, I thought I was going to see somebody die in the ring that night. As I was watching that, it was the damnedest fight I'd ever seen at that point.
Yeah, when the blood flies on like this guy, the exploder off the apron that like didn't quite explode as much as most people probably would have, which made it look way cooler.
Right.
Yeah, there was a lot. Yeah.
So we're already over 2 hours, so we're going to start streamlining some of this. In order to, we can always come back and do more.
Yeah.
With a follow-up episode. So we have to at least get you talking about, you've mentioned some of the matches with Hero, but the feud, at least in my eyes, as I remember it, and again, at this point, I've mentioned I had started to check out of the shows and wasn't paying attention, wasn't wanting to really be there. But I do remember your feud with Hero, and that, they say the feud with me like elevated you at least out of opener status and got you into like the middle of the card on the
Or like
shows.
at
And
least
then,
I'm definitely gonna get booked status.
yeah, and then the Hero feud got you to the main event,
Yeah.
kind of thing. What are your memories? Any quick stories you've got on the feud with Hero and what Hero did for you?
Yeah, I mean, he's just probably out of any. I mean, he's definitely. I've probably talked pro wrestling with him more than anyone in my entire life. We just always bouncing stuff off each other. Now we just send like tweets back and forth. But watching that, like I saw the 55-minute like TLC match, and I was like, oh, that's cool. Like Chris was on the first indie show I ever saw because he was on the JCW show I went to. That's the actual first indie show I went to. I always say it's the MCW show, but technically it was the JCW show, and Chris was on that tour, as was like probably me, Mitch Page, and Madman Pondo, but I remembered him from that.
Okay, so the Juggalo,
Yeah.
not Jersey.
No,
Juggalo.
no.
Okay.
Yeah, they did a tour in like the year 2000. So, but like that weird note are the 93-minute match, because that's like him and Punk coming from the Blue Bloods camp and just seeing like they just did like weird lockups, and I was just like, oh, this is like different than everything else. And then Chris got so fascinated with that style, and he'd constantly evolve, and then people would like, I think it was almost like an advantage for him that people steal all his stuff, because he's like, well, I know how to change it and I do it better than everyone else. So he'll be ahead of the curve constantly. And so like we were doing that, and I was kind of like, I felt like I was always like kind of a hanger on ish until we started feuding because he turned heel on Cannon at TPI 05. I was one of the people he beat up because I never said I was one of his students. He just listed me on his website as a student. So I was like, okay, I'm going to say it now. So like I was like me and Mickey got beat up. Bryce got beat up. So we did all that. After I beat Sweeney in a match on that one mid-low show, I called him out. We did a promo together. I think he just kicked me in the balls and like told me I had to grow up or something. And Ian like told me, he's like, I don't want you to be like mad. He's like, I just want you to like start crying. And I was like, okay, and I think it went well. And then later after he beat Merrick, I cut a promo and we set up a match for that Thanksgiving, which like that show ended up not happening. That was kind of like the whole AAW thing that ended up happening. It was that week. So then Hero and then at Midlow, we kind of got rolling. We had the first match that was like probably like a 26-minute match, and he just beat the shit out of me, but it was good. That's probably the story of most of our matches. Then we did the Iron Man match. We had a really like cool finish that I came up with where I had him like passed out, but like as the third hand goes down, the time elapses. So like I didn't beat him. I went to Ian. Ian and I kind of like talked shit to each other because we were supposed to wrestle each other at the We're No Joke show, but that ended up in a 9-man TLC Royal Rumble, as one does. And
as one does.
And then where I kind of like cemented like, okay, we're actually friends. He likes me, was that the 2006 match we had at TPI, because like I remember we both had like watched like the Ravens Secrets of the Ring or something. And he talked about like baby faces shouldn't get up to their feet in the heat and just be kind of standing around. So I remember one part of the match, I'm like crawling up the ropes and I'm like, I know Hero's not going to let me get to my feet. And as I'm thinking it, he drop kicks me. I was like, awesome. And then, like, we were just so insane. Like, from then on, like, I remember us, like, chaining before ROH shows, and, like, we could do spots without talking to each other just from, like, doing training together and kind of having that, like, I was really, it's funny, I was really into kind of the Yaveo, like, lucha style, and, like, '05 to like '08, at least I wanted to be, but nobody really knew it, and it's kind of intricate, and so it was like kind of hard to do with people. And then it became the thing like 10 years later, and I was like, well, I'm not wrestling now, so I'm just kind of missing out. But like Chris, like as like humans go, is definitely one of my best friends. Like I've only I often joke I don't know how love works, but as a like non family member, he's one of the only people I've ever told I've loved, and just like definitely a huge influence on my wrestling and just life in general.
Yeah, Hero is awesome like that, and he'll help out everybody. And there's countless wrestlers out there that can tell stories like you just told of like Hero elevating you up. And
That's something I think of, like isn't as big of a thing now. So like they say with any kind of business, like if I'm me as a personal trainer, but like getting good at anything, it's like you kind of want people at your level to discuss an art or like any type of performance. You want someone above you, and then you want people below you. So in wrestling, it's like wrestling somebody your same skill level, have a banger, cool, awesome. You wrestle somebody better than you, it's probably gonna be a good match when you get to a certain level, especially. But I think like Hero is just such a master of like making people look way better than they actually were at that time, which then helped them have the confidence to become better performers in the future. And like
right.
he just did that with everybody. He knew everybody's moves. Like he just, like because you come up to somebody and you're like, hey, I think we should do this. A quick story with him the first time he wrestled Ali, and this just shows like his professionalism. Hero did like a spot he liked where like somebody would do a moonsault and he'd catch him in a cravat and be like, oh, and then give him a cravat suplex, or 450 catch him. So Ali did that imploding 450 where he would face like he was doing a Phoenix splash or a moonsault, jump in and do the 450 inside, which no one else was doing at the time. Hero, of course, is like, cool, you do that, I'm going to catch you in a cravat. And that obviously kind of like shook Ali a little bit. So Ali jumps in, probably freaked out or like wanted to make sure he's in the right position. Because then that's really far to go past Hero, like jumping in that direction. Ali ends up double stomping Hero from like 450. Hero says, pin me. Pins him. Hero takes the pin. Hero is supposed to go over in the match. Like Ali was like on like he was at that point where it's like you're gonna wrestle these name guys, but you're gonna lose, but you're gonna have good matches. And Hero just was like, "You hit me with your finish. I'm like, you beat me." So that started me and Ali teaming. So I was out there with him and I'm hugging him, and he goes, "I shoot pinned Hero," and without missing, I go, I know, act excited. And like Hero went over to like a garbage can and made himself throw up. Like it was just like wild. And it's just like he's like, I'm not gonna bury this kid's finisher.
Right. Well, and especially something that looks that amazing.
Yeah.
Just go with it. So before we get into name association to end this, I have to talk you winning the IWA Mid-South heavyweight title. So if you want to just talk about how you found out you were going to win it and what it meant, and like if you have any stories to go with it.
Yeah, that was so '06, I was feuding with Hero, and then like I think Hero and Claudio were supposed to go to Mexico for a few months, but they ended up popping back, so there weren't really plans for Hero kind of going forward, because it was we did the We're No Joke TLC match that he caught like it was me and Corbin. I'm climbing up. He puts me on his shoulders, does the electric chair, shoots me, then he threw me in the crowd where there were actually people, so I got busted open. Corbin wins the title shot. And then there was a mid-low show with like a really not awesome house. I wrestled Abercrombie there. Abercrombie, that's like one of the best matches I ever had. We had a match for the light heavyweight title that was super fun. Corbin wrestled Cannon. Cannon was the champion at the time. Corbin wins the belt. And just to try to shock people a little bit, I think was Ian's intention. Because Hero wanted it to like, he wanted it to be kind of a 4-man thing for a little bit with like me, Cannon, him, and Corbin. So we're kind of doing that stuff because I wrestled Corbin the night before, or I wrestled Cannon the night before in Indy, and I think we did like a DQ finish or something, and then so like there was a weird thing where I don't know what happened, but Ian calls. I was working at a factory at the time, and I'm like in front of a blowtorch or something. Ian calls me, which didn't happen a lot. Or maybe it was Prazak. They were like, no, it wasn't Prazak. He had already left. But they're like, can you do this NWA Midwest date? And I was like, I mean, I can. Like, what? And he's like, okay, we need you to win the belt on that day. And I was like, all right, like, what? You know, like, what's going on?
What?
And because I guess, I don't know. I think there was a date Corbin couldn't make then after winning the belt. But I'm not sure what date it was because then that didn't end up happening because Corbin couldn't come. It would have been weird. So then we got booked at King of the Death 06. The first night it was Cannon and Corbin. I believe you were working the show on commentary. I ended up doing a run-in. This is actually the weekend I made, or this is the most I ever made for an IWA match the next night. So I did a run-in. I was booked just to do a run-in the first night, and then we set up the three-way the next night. Set up the three-way, doing the match. I arm drag Corbin, and you could see, like, on the show, there used to be a music video of this on YouTube, but I don't think it's there anymore. And I still have a bump in my, like, wrist-ish area now. Corbin just, like, landed on me weird on an arm drag, and I broke my hand. Like, I was like, what the? Yeah, I like looked. You just see me kind of like whip black and like. So I was like, whatever. We did a lot of really cool moves. I dove off the top of this. Like I climbed up the steel cage, which was against this wall. I jumped off that on all of them with Kevin Harvey. I got. I think Corbin eliminated Cannon. I tapped Corbin out. Kevin Harvey like gave Corbin a belt, even though there wasn't an IWA title because Hero broke it after Cannon won it. And I was like, he was like, yeah, you get the belt and I'm going to take it from you. And I was like, no, like if I'm winning the belt, I'm just going to like, that's my belt. Like you should have
Right.
brought a belt because I was like, at least I was like, we could get rid of it. You could have it next month. But I was like, if there's a belt being brought out, I'm going to leave with it. So the crowd chanted great fucking match, which like it's just interesting to me when like weird chants happen. Like
Right.
it's not like so it was just like a unique chant to like a King of the Death match's like regular match. So I do that and I'm in the ring and Ian comes over and he's like saying nice things about me, blah, blah, blah. And then he puts me in TPI for that year, which had been like, I'd been wrestling for IWA for 3 years. So that was like a big deal. And I was trying to be kind of, because it was like being the scrappy baby face was cool, but it's like, I'd like to have more matches like the Johnny Storm match, which was like hard to get. So that happened. And this might have been why Corbin, like that whole thing happened. So then there was a mid-low show where I wrestled Corbin in a rematch. And the next night I lost the belt to Toby because like Ian wanted Toby to like, he could wrestle the deathmatch guys and he could wrestle he can, because we just had like a normal match. So maybe Corbin couldn't do the show that Toby was going to be at to win the belt. And that's why he had to put it on me. So yeah, we did that. There was a thing, I wrestled Ian once and he put me in a hold and he started tickling me. And I like freaked out and like I was like, rather you chop me or like um so Toby, he told Toby that, and that reminded me of another hero story I'll tell really quick after this. Toby jams his fingers in my armpits, and it feels like he's doing like a Tongan death grip or something.
Right.
Like it feels like a pressure point hold. And I was like, what? And then, like, hey Toby, like like what was that thing? And he's like, oh, I was tickling you. Like Ian told me that story, and I was like, cool. I guess like just for insanity that was tickling. But that match was super fun. Another from the Iron Man match with Hero, an interesting ring in the ring, like what's going on story. I did this like butterfly submission I got from like Dragon Kid, and I put Hero in it, so he kind of pivots, but I'm like on him, like him body scissors. He tears the canvas with his boot, so there's just like a slit in the canvas now. I think there was like a hardcore match after us, like just one match left. So Hero, seeing something creative, as he does, cuts me off, says, turn your head and trust me. And I was like, well, obviously I'm going to. A second later, I just see darkness. And I'm like, where the fuck am I? And then Hero jumps up, stomps me. I'm fine, but I'm freaked the fuck out. A second later, I see people again. And I was like, what just happened? So Hero put me down, put the canvas over my head, held me there, then jumped up and stomped my like head into like the wood, which was fine, but it was like you don't expect like he doesn't have anything, so it's like what's over my head? I didn't notice the canvas ripped when I did the move.
Okay.
One of the most safely perplexed moments of my wrestling career.
So you just thought that, oh my God, I just went blind. What happened?
I thought I was under the ring. So like, I don't know what happened.
Wow. Okay, so we're gonna finish up with some name association here. Like I say we got plenty of stuff where we can end up doing a future episode, which is good because at some point I'm gonna have to start cycling back through everybody and having more stories to tell. Because there's only so many different people that I can actually talk with. So we're going to go into the name association, and the first name I'm going to give you, he told me to put this on here, and remember, he edits this. So speak kindly of Nick Manawa.
The sweetest. For the last decade, like just my old man technology-ish, I just like I'll have a song I want to get like just edit the intro off of, and I'm like, hey Nick, like it's probably the easiest thing to do. And I was like, Nick, how about you could you do this for me? I'll pay, I'll Venmo you something, but just like one of the I've seen him like Connor was talking about, because this is one of the things that got me to want to wrestle again. Connor was talking about those like live streams IWA TV was doing during the pandemic, and Nick would send like there was like the We're No Joke like ladder match, and like Nick sent me like screenshots of everything nice people said about me, and I was like, oh, like that's different than but like one of my first supporters, I mean, we being younger, like close in age, one of my top AIM friends forever. Yeah, just a sweetheart of a guy, and like always trying to help people out. Now that he's like an elder statesman now.
Well, Papa Manawa, and I'm like, you're my little brother. I'm not calling you Papa, but but yeah, same with me. I like Black Label Pro had messaged me and was like, we need ring music for you, if you're gonna, and I'm like, oh shit. And so like the first person I reach out to is, hey Manawa, what are they even talking about? How, what am I supposed to do here? How is this? And, and so of course my song that I use, don't mess around with Jim. But in that song, Jim dies. Slim comes along and kills him. And I'm like, so I've got 50 seconds of usable song to come out to. And I'm like, what do I do? And he's like, well, and I told him I had like an idea for doing start it off with that and then cut it off before Slim arrives.
Before Jim perishes.
Yeah, before Jim perishes, and I'm like, okay, and then we got this song, and then there was like just a segment of that song that I like before it gets bad, and then I'm like, okay, and then we can go back and maybe you just redo that first verse, so we have these parts, and so like in 5 minutes he's got me something, and he's like that would be great for like once we get some highlight reel stuff for you, that would be a great music video to use that way. He's like, I don't think that works as an entrance. Give me a second. And so then he like does a second where he just like loops the main verse of and he had it to me, and then we get to the show and I'm like, well, we'll just come out to Mickey's music because this is about her. And so then I didn't even end up using it, and I was like, okay, well, I'll use it the next night at Wrestle Arts. But then we changed that around a few times because of Connor being in Minnesota and not getting there till so late. So we like changed how we were going to do it. And I'm like, so it wouldn't make sense the way that things were going for me to come out to me. So, Manawa makes all this stuff for me and then I don't even end up using it. But I was like, but I've got it safe. Yeah, it'll be used at some point. It'll be used. But yeah, Manawa is awesome with stuff like that. Just jumping in and always helping out. So another name, we've talked about him a little bit, but just thoughts on Boz and Bradley.
Both it was funny to me because Brad would always make fun of me for like watching a lot of wrestling, which was like kind of commonplace, and like telling me to like work out more and all this stuff. Like Boz was always chill and cool and he fun to wrestle with, but it was Brad was a different story at first, and we eventually. So like to me, it's always like to change someone's opinion of you is like. Like you don't, when you're young, you don't really understand that. You're just like, oh, this person will hate me forever. So Brad went to Deep South and he was with WWE for a few years, and then he came back to the Indies, and it was before an AEW show, and he like grabs me and he hits me, and I like go down and like I'm going to the ropes, and he's like, what the like what, you're like good at this? And then he hits me another way. He's like, I could do this all night. Like we need to get booked against each other. And then like me, because it's something I get like when people ask me, like, younger guys ask me like workout advice, like especially when they're teenagers in their early 20s. I'm like, you just need to like do it because you're gonna collect compound interest. Like if you don't start investing, you don't, But in 5 years, if you just keep going to the gym, good things are probably gonna happen. Like because I remember one of Colby's students when he first started was like, how do I get my chest bigger? And I was like, just don't care about it and do chest every week. Like, just do it. And now he's a brick shit house. And like, I bet that's not anything, it's like, you can't, like, it was like, you're not, like, if you've never lifted weights, or like you're a hard gaining dude, like, just go. And like, if you don't go, like you're probably not going to make that progress, but it's going to happen, as long as you keep investing. Because I've had people with like a program I wouldn't think is the most optimal for them, but they just are so dedicated to it that, 3 years later, by like '08, I looked like someone who could be on pro wrestling shows. And it was just like, like compared to like not, working out for like a year, compared to 6 years, it's like I'm still not huge, but like I look like I could hurt somebody, and like spray tan technology's gotten a lot better, so that's helpful. But
yeah. See, I'm the kind of person where I go to the gym, and at the end of the week, if I'm not 40 pounds lighter, I'm like,
Hogwash.
what was this? I've been bullshitted. This is horrible. And it's like if I don't see the immediate results, you lose me real quick. So, you know, uh,
I am glad that it was a big thing in the 2000s. Like making fun of people for liking wrestling has pretty much gone away to the wayside in pro wrestling, which is nice. Like, because everybody liked it, but it's like just like being able to like verbally say that and not be made fun of is helpful.
yeah, yeah. And what about Eddie Kingston?
Oh man, he just I remember sitting in a bunk bed with him and like in Heroes Cornfield and us just talking to each other for like 3 hours straight about like every emo-y thing we could as 20-year-olds and just like like immediately I met him at Eric Cannon's promotion and it was called MPW. I forget what the M stood for. But that's where I did my first Skyday camp. I met him, Bryce, Akuma, and Icarus all that weekend. And like Eddie was just like instantly just nice to me. And there's not like I'm an 18-year-old. Like there's no like it's just like being a cool. They were all nice, but like especially just like so like interested in like somebody he doesn't really need to be. There's nothing to get from me. Uh, and that's just like who he always was. So like, yeah, I'm so like somebody. It's like just so great to see them be successful now and like just so dedicated. Like I know right before there was like the thing he was like selling his boots to like before his first AEW match or something to like be able to make his mortgage payment and somebody that talented definitely should be rewarded. So just I would love like I know at some point I'll probably see him in the future and just like he still like will like wrestling pictures I post and just like him and Blackjack are just two guys I instantly connected with and yeah, great human being.
Yeah, Eddie's awesome. I just saw him at the Squared Circle Expo, being out there and doing the Black Label show. I had bought tickets for the Squared Circle Expo as soon as I saw that he was listed. I was like, I got my best friend loves going to those things and he'll get 100 autographs and go meet everybody. And then he just wants me to tag along with him and just to have somebody in the car with him as he does the 3-hour drive to Indianapolis and whatever. But then I end up getting myself booked. So then I end up going the day before, and my buddy doesn't even. So my buddy has to drive it by himself anyway to get out there. But then I saw like Eddie was listed and being in like Canada or whatever on like the Friday night when I was doing the Black Label, and I'm like, oh God, is he even gonna be here? And oh man, I'd be so disappointed if I don't get to see him. But I was also scared because I had told the story on the podcast the year before I went to the expo with my buddy, and I just went to see Claudio. And Claudio did not have a clue who the fuck I was. Did not have clue one. And I'm sitting there going, we worked together in IWA, and I had a Nick Manawa shirt on, and he's looking at me and he's like, are you Manawa on the shirt? And I'm like, no, I'm not Nick Manawa. And he's like, well, who are you? And I'm like, I managed you in the 8-man tag comedy match with Candido. And he just kept looking at me like, what? And then like after just staring at me, then I could tell he just started faking it. And he was like, oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, okay, now I remember. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And I'm like, oh my God, if I go see Eddie and Eddie doesn't remember me, I'd probably just go wander out in traffic at that point. But that was like one of the Claudio not having any clue as to who the fuck I was one of the catalysts that got me going like, I need to start doing something again because everybody's forgotten me kind of deal. And so I go there and like Tom, not that Tom Green,
Yeah,
but that posts the all the videos and
WCW
stuff
stuff.
all the time. He had posted a photo of his kid with Eddie Kingston. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, so Eddie's here. That's great. I'm going to start getting ready and I'm going to go over and go. But then I look at the picture and I'm like, son of a bitch, is that my chain? Because the night before I had thrown a chain in the match with Mickey and Nate like got the chain and got us disqualified, did like the Eddie Guerrero where
Yeah.
he like tosses the chain to Mickey and then takes a bump and the ref turns around and disqualifies Mickey. Well, like Mickey drops the chain in the ring. Nate gives it to somebody. Nate comes into the back and he's like, "Oh, I gave your chain to a kid. I'm sorry." And I'm like, "What the I just spent $10 on this thing and you give it away the first night? Like, god damn it." So I had no idea who he gave it to. But then I'm like looking at this photo that gets posted the next day, and Kingston has this chain on his fist. And I reply to the tweet to Tom, and I'm like, "Is that my fucking chain? That looks like my fucking chain. Is that my fucking chain?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, funny story. Nate Webb gave my kid your chain, and then we told Eddie Kingston that we had your chain." And so he put it on for this photo, and he was like so happy to hear that you were doing wrestling again. And I'm like, "Oh, that's great." So then I rush over to the expo, and I'm just looking around trying to find where Kingston's at, and I can't find him on the little listing that they have for their little map or whatever. And but then I'm just walking down the hall and I see like the big flyer or canvas sign that they had up that he was in this one room. So I like went in and went up, and as soon as I came around the corner and started walking towards the table, he just jumps up from the table and runs over and gives me a giant hug. And he's like, "I'm so fucking happy to see you and so glad that you're back to doing things in the business." And we're like chatted like we hadn't missed a day together, and it had been freaking 15 years or whatever since I had seen him. And just a great guy. And like I think we hugged so long that like 10 people ended up like getting in his line. He's like, "I better go deal with these people that are waiting in line." I'm like, "Go ahead, but great to see you." And so happy that it went better than the experience with Claudio the year before. But we'll finish
Yeah.
up with Dave Prazak.
I was gonna just one more thing that makes Eddie awesome. He
Okay.
let me in an insane head scissors to the floor at the ECW arena that I think popped the burst a sack in my elbow. That it still gets interesting every now and then. Yeah, man, like Prazak, another guy talking on AIM and like just I don't know what he like why he was like trying to help me get on shows and stuff and talking through Robles initially. And then when we became like actual buddies and doing commentary together and like we were I mean I saw him at Freelance a few weeks ago. We made like a list of like lots of interesting independent wrestling names and just like he had nice things to say about it. I had wrestled for Freelance the month before about like kind of the stuff I did there. But I don't know why he I have no idea why he took an interest in me in like '03. But I appreciate that he did. And then it was fun for we'll talk about this another time, but going to AAW and then actually working with him. He was my manager there for 2 years and like having some big matches and kind of doing all that stuff. Because we ended up working with Motor City Machine Guns and it had been over 2 years. It was probably like 2.5 years. He was my manager there. Prazak got me booked for Ring of Honor. Like it was the night after the first Hero Midlow show. That was a crazy week. So that was on a Thursday for some reason. Friday, we kind of just hung out. Then Saturday, or like Friday night, we left and we drove to Philly for Ring of Honor, which I was initially booked for because they were doing these like short like newswire matches, and Milano Collection AT was supposed to be in the match, and Prazak was like, this kid could get, like, he knows like that Skyday like type, you know, he was one of the T2P instructors. He's like, he can do that stuff. He's flexible. Like Milano Collection AT could wrap this kid up. So I got booked to wrestle him. I ended up wrestling Jack Evans. And then because Milano Collection AT was hurt, and he just 630'd me on, or 450'd me on the floor, did a bunch of stuff. And there were a couple injuries, like Claudio got moved into a tag match. So I wrestled, once again, doubling the percentage of matches I'm having. I have this like pre-show match with Jack Evans because of Prazak, and then I get booked in the scramble match. So I wrestled twice in like 2 or 3 hours, and that's actually where I met Adam Pearce and like got to work with him and tell him stories of Sonny. He was another cool guy because like I took this like big football tackle from him. And he was like, I think that bump really helped me. He was just not, it's like you do certain things like with Axel, we just had a good match and I was a competent tag partner. And then like every time I saw him, it's like, this guy's good, you know?
Right.
But yeah, Dave, and then Dave pretty much like kind of the way he was with IWA trying to get me in there, like tried to help me with Ring of Honor and like help me get more dates there. And we did sporadic things and it was cool. But yeah, just, oh man, the last IWA show, which I think will be the last IWA show. I was gonna, like, I reached out to Ian about doing the show after, which never happened. So it's a good thing he needed somebody for a scramble match, like for that show. Then I show up and he's like, I need you to do a 15-minute match with Logan James. And I was like, I'm going to go on IWTV and watch his matches. So like I'm in the back doing the things and like come out, wrestle the match. It goes well. It was really fun. And like Dave got there at some point and like the like way I yelled, Dave, you know, when he like came and hugged me after the match, like that was like seeing him and Manawa and Abercrombie that night were really special. So getting to like hang out with Dave at like Freelance even now, like I was at their last show and just like talking to him for like an hour was just so much fun. And like you said, it's like this time doesn't pass when you see some of these people, you know, certain people.
Right.
Like, amazing.
Yeah, as I just saw Prazak when I went and I hung out with Nate, and then, you know, ended up spending more time with Prazak than Nate at the GCW show when they were at Talia Hall a few weeks ago. And, you know, me and Prazak, you know, the fact that we're born 2 days apart and end up, you know, in IWA and everything else, like just cosmic stars align to.
He taught you how to lock up.
He taught me how to lock up, but you know, we had all that experience as the IWA commentary team, managing the superheroes together. You know, he's the one that put the idea in my head and told me to ask IWTV to start airing the podcast. So, you know, I don't even think of something like that if it's not for him, you know, putting the idea in my head and encouraging me to do it and being like, hey, you know, more people are listening to this than you think. You know, people are liking this. Still wouldn't come on. Still say he's not comfortable coming onto it. He did tell me that if he ever does a podcast, that it would be this one. So still a chance out there. Maybe we can peer pressure him into coming on, because that could probably be a 15-hour podcast put into like 10 parts that, you know,
that'll set
wouldn't repeat
off.
anything, you know.
You want to take the summer off or something, just split that up. He did ask me a few weeks ago, he's like, because I was like, oh, I think I'm going to do Jim's podcast pretty soon. And he's like, oh, are you going to just go scorched earth on like, I was like, I was like, I think I'll just like talk shit about myself mostly. Like, I think that'll probably be my strategy.
The numbers on the episode do much better when there is a rant somewhere. So we didn't hit a rant here. But hopefully people have stuck through to the end. This has been great catching up with you. And you had mentioned, I ended up seeing you at the memorial show for Eric Priest.
Was that one of the things? Like, was that one of the shows that kind of got your wheels turning on stuff a bit?
Um, I mean, what got it going was the Hall of Fame ceremony for Mitch and Roland with GCW last June, so almost a year ago now, I guess 10 months ago. And just seeing the love and outpouring of support for Mitch and Roland from the people that were at that show. And I joked, me and Mitch joked, you had the IWA Mid-South tag title Freebird Rule. We joked that I have the Hall of Fame Freebird Rule as the third member of Mean and Hard. And, it, like say, it was just that. And like say, then like right around that time would have been when that Squared Circle Expo happened, and like Claudio had no clue who I was. And so that followed up by the Hall of Fame thing just really got me thinking, what's my legacy? Is anybody even going to remember that I did anything? And what they remember, is it just going to be, Ian Rotten's lackey and, his enabler and whatever, and having just negative connotations and whatever. And I'm like, through talking with Nick and stuff, the tripping balls that I let do the AMA with me and ask me all those questions, like those two were really the ones that were like almost having to be my therapists every night, and sitting there telling me that, I'm harder on myself than anybody else is, that yes, I'm not known. Yes, I am mostly forgotten, but that there was a way back. There was a path to, I call it like the path to redemption, come back for redemption tour, whatever, that there was a spot for me if I wanted it, that I wasn't as toxic as I thought, as far as like people being willing to accept me back. It has been a slow process. It's not like I'm not getting shows every week kind of thing. And it's sometimes that's depressing too, because you're thinking, oh, well, you know, I would have thought that maybe an opportunity would open up at some point. And so far it's been other people doing the heavy lifting for me.
Yeah.
And telling people, hey, bring him in for me, do this favor for me. And, so it's gotten me a couple of things, and we'll see where it goes from there. But yeah, like, the priest thing played a part in it too. I had mentioned it before, like, I've now passed. My mom passed away when I was 16. She was only 38. My dad passed away when he was 49. I'm 49. I'm the kind of sick bastard that I did the math and had it right down in 1 week before my comeback. So it was like March 20th. So 20 days, like just a few weeks ago, was when I passed how old my dad was when he passed away. And it's like, you don't know how much time you got left. You don't know what can happen. And, you could get sick. you could be Eric Priest and have a motorcycle accident. Like, I'm not on a motorcycle, but but you just don't know what could happen, how much time you've got. And so it put like, I'm getting close to 50. If I wanted, it was like, if I wanted to do this, now's the time, now's the time and to try it. So it all played together, in putting it, that kind of a spin on it is, if I was going to do it, I needed to get started on it.
Yeah.
So the Priest thing did play a role in it. And say then getting the podcast and the positive response that the podcast got, I didn't think anybody would want to come on here and talk with me. I couldn't believe the people I've heard from with, yeah, I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll do it. Can I do it? Can I do it? And messages from people that I hadn't heard from in 20 years, and all of a sudden it's like, hey man, I've been listening to that podcast and can I be on there? And I'm like, sure, come on, let's do it.
I remember Nick a few weeks ago, or it might have been a few months ago, but when the Jimmy episode, he was like, man, we did 3 hours and blah, blah. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then like we had talked a lot at the pre-show. Like I think you and PJ just kind of hung out for a good chunk of time. So I was like, I remember like, so like one of the things I always wanted to do in IWA was tag with Cash. Like I thought I wanted that like thing. I was like, I don't think Jim's doing shows anymore, but like I need him to like to manage me and Cash as a tag team just once. But yeah, it is like now, especially because like a lot of the people we know like just aren't on an independent level as much, so it's hard to like,
right.
And then people don't know who you are, so it's like I was telling you, I've just got like I went to a show last week and I met a promoter. He's very nice. I liked a lot of the things they did with the show, and he was like, yeah, message me this week. And I send him a message and I was like, hey man, I wrestle as Trick Davis, this and that. I was trained by these guys, blah, blah, blah. I think I'm a stronger heel right now, And he writes me back. He's like, because I sent him a YouTube link to my freelance match just so you could see kind of what I do right now. He writes me a message back, very nice. He's like, we're planning out these shows, blah, blah, blah. We'll get, we want to get you in. And he's like, he just didn't recognize me, which makes sense. Or it didn't make sense to him that like I would be at one of his shows. He sends me a picture of it's like a September 2005 Midlow show VHS. He's like, you don't have to send me YouTube clips. I got these. And so it's like, like it's like sometimes, like context of like, it's like when you see certain people at the airport sometimes, and it's like, you're like, I shouldn't, or like your work friends you see out, or like, even if I would just see my training clients in like normal clothes on the streets, it's like, I don't see you here, but
yeah,
you just started now. You got a good franchise player. So that's good. And yeah.
Right. Well, if Cash Flo had told me a long time ago that he'd come do a podcast episode, but I had to wait for like filming to wrap up on Tulsa King. And I'm like, man, I've reached out to him a couple of times and he keeps going, oh man, we're filming through this time. And now we're filming through this time. And I'm like, I get it. I'd be more hanging out with Sylvester Stallone than me anyway. Yeah. But he's always like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm like, nothing to be sorry about, man. Make your name and make your money now.
And hard as rocks, but just a heart of gold. Like just
right.
Another like, because it's like he could have I remember for the second match, we did a thing I wanted to do where it was like I was in an electric chair and I wanted to get like thrown on the ring post, and we tried it in the back, and like turning, I went to like kind of push off his head, and I like thumbed his eye.
And
he got out of me, like, and he was just like, "Oh, I'm mad about that." But then by the time we had the match, we did the thing. It was good, and that might have been like where they called the DQ on it. But yeah, so definitely a sweetheart.
Yep. Do you have any upcoming shows you want to plug? Any merch you want to try to plug? Anything?
I mean, I have a couple Trickelodeon shirts in my closet that I probably will never sell. But I
Here's
had
your opportunity. If you want a Trickelodeon t-shirt, reach out to Trick. How can they reach out to you?
I had some shows coming up this month, but they're at the Berwyn Eagles Club. So we're kind of in limbo on things. We'll see
Yeah.
what happens. So uh, yeah, I don't nothing on that front, but like I'm on Instagram. Like I have a Twitter. I don't use it. Like I use it to like retweet stuff, but like Instagram, my handle's irrelevant.goals. I trying to post more wrestling-ish stuff. Like I posted a story kind of showing my like current playlist of things. I'm really into like 80s tag wrestling at the moment. But yeah, and I'll
Great
probably
stuff to be in.
yeah. I watched I was telling you I was watching the Rock and Roll's debut that and it's like a half-hour match with the Russians and just amazing. I guess I have it bookmarked their Mid-South, or I don't think it's their Mid-South debut, but like the first time they wrestled the Midnights there. But I think they wrestled Nikolai Volkov and Barry Darso their first match in like Mid-South TV and won the belt. So I
Okay.
think a couple of years later they did it again. I may be wrong on this. It's funny, like I love wrestling. I have lots of useless knowledge about it, but like, do you follow Pro Wrestling Playlist Charles?
I do. I started following him recently and doing some of the stuff, but I
Just
don't quite understand how it all works. So like I keep getting like these messages with and I'm like, well, where am I supposed to watch this? Where
so I'll plug like I think he has like a Ko-fi or like it's like kofi.com Pro Wrestling Playlist. You could pay $10 a month. You get access to his Google Drive. He just it goes back to like the 1899. I like Brian Danielson's plugged it on stuff before, and
okay.
but it's like month by month. He has an accompanied newsletter that like he reviews most of them, a lot of matches. So like there's a lot of matches. I'm like, oh, Charles said this was this, but just like talking to him, he's just the least like dogmatic for wrestling. Like he's just like, yeah, I understand. You know, it's like how we all should be about most things in life. Just like there's a lot of things I'm really into that like I know like pro wrestling wise and other but like that I like I'm not gonna like you got to kind of know your audience. Like I'm really into Bobby Barnes and this guy Tally Ho K. I know they're not everyone's cup of tea, but kind of for what I'm trying to do in certain matches, that's what I'm really into. And like his newsletter kind of exposed me to a lot of that stuff, and just like and like I mean hearing all this stuff, the different stuff about like Portland wrestling, which like I knew existed. Like everyone knows like Piper was really over there and like Buddy Rose was really over there, but like you're like, oh, these guys were a tag team, and then this was happening. I was then Buddy Rose had a babyface run, and like that's where a lot of those guys are really helpful with like seeing all those kind of just like opening up your eyes to like different different things you might be there's so much like I said when I was like 7 when I didn't understand that Hot Stuff International was a thing. Like there's so many things we don't know about, and it doesn't mean it's bad. And like some of these like things I've watched in a lot like since wrestling again is some of my favorite matches.
I really like I had just put in my ballot for greatest wrestler ever. That's going on now. Their little project that they got for listing your top 100. My buddy Les Johns, that was on like episode 5 as a guest, he put together this like computer program where I had narrowed it down. I went through the list of nominees that they had that you could use to vote on, and I came up with a list of 140 off of the nominated. So he put together this little computer program for me where it would like say, it would just pop up and be like Ric Flair versus Dusty Rhodes. And I'd have to pick who, and but then we did like a weighted, he put like a weighted value on it. So it was like dominant win, decisive win, barely win. So it was like 5 points, 3 points, 1 point.
Yeah.
And so then like at the like and it would go through like every possible matchup out of the 140 people that I had, so I could like have these point totals to go towards. And John Tatum was in my 140 list, and I was really trying to like get him to where he could get into that top 100, but he was one of the 40 that didn't make the cut. And I was like, oh, I really appreciated John Tatum, and he really got the short end of the stick there in the Hyatt Hot Stuff International in UWF days. But yeah, so no other plugs though, just the
check out Charles's playlist. That's probably the best thing for wrestling fandom.
There you go.
Subscribe, like in his newsletter, he's only up to like 88, but like
yeah, like I get the newsletter every day, and it's like he's like that's my wheelhouse is like the 80 like 1988, 87, 89, 89 is like my favorite year. But yeah, I'll get these newsletters, and then he'll be like, "Oh, and this is great, and this is great, and this." And I'm like, "Where do I watch it at? What's going on? I can't."
I like looked through like his drive, like even to the future, and like not everything's labeled like as you get into like the 2000s. But I was just like, because I was looking for like Reckless Youth matches the one day, and I found a really cool one, him and Spike Dudley. But then I was like, well, I'm gonna look. Like I had a match with me and Tyler Black versus the Briscoes. And I was like, let me see if he's got like 2007, and he kind of has like the things like up. And he hasn't gotten there, but I was like able to kind of decipher like where it would be. And I was like, oh, I found it. I haven't watched it yet, but I'm really excited to like watch that. And just that he has everything, there's so many great things. And then there's so many things that like aren't on like YouTube and stuff, which has a ton of things too. But yeah.
Right.
Cool.
All right. Well, this wraps up another edition of Fannin's Flashbacks. I'd like to thank Trick for joining me today. Remember to check out my YouTube channel at youtube.com/sportsfannin for IWA clips, matches, and these podcasts. When you get to the YouTube channel, start by clicking the like button and hit subscribe. But more importantly, if you have a subscription to IWTV, Independent Wrestling TV, ran by Smart Mark Video, please go watch the podcast there. Makes me a little bit of money, helps out. If this podcast does well, they're taking a chance by giving me this opportunity. This goes well, might open up the doors for other of your favorite podcasts to be able to get on here, other kind of shows to have legs like this. So support me to help support others coming behind me. So even if you don't like me, go watch it, go subscribe to IWTV. You're going to have so much great wrestling that you can watch on there. This is going to drop after most of the WrestleMania week stuff has happened, but just 9 million shows going on out in Las Vegas this coming week. A lot of them are going to be on IWTV, so subscribe so you can watch this. It's cheaper than Netflix, ladies and gentlemen, for their subscription, and the wrestling is a hell of a lot better on IWTV. The best indies in the world are there. You can watch a ton of it, ton of the IWA current product, all kinds of stuff. But follow me, go follow them on IWTV, on Twitter, Instagram, subscribe to their streaming service, watch all that great stuff. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at jfannin73. And my next show on the comeback tour is Wrestle Arts on May 23rd. You can still get your tickets at Wrestle Arts Tix. That's Wrestle Arts Tix, Tix.com. Connor Hopkins and I are definitely accepting bookings before then. Connor's schedule is much busier than mine, but there's still dates that can be filled for both of us. So reach out to either me or Connor on our socials and bring the Fannin family to your next show. You said you had some stuff that got canceled because of the stuff going on in Berwyn. Sidebar, maybe, possibly, perchance, there was a show that I was told that I could be on and manage somebody that's on the bucket list that I haven't managed yet. And by the end of the day, luckily they found a new venue already, so I think I'm still on. But I was like, yep, that's my kind of luck. I get a bucket list item that I can check off, and, bullshit happens and probably a show going to be canceled. But Hasn't been announced yet, so I'm not going to say any more than that, but there are some things on the horizon, a couple of shows that I've got coming up that are not Wrestle Arts, but Wrestle Arts is the main place to get me right now. So WrestleArtsTix.com to get those tickets. And we'll see you next time on the next episode of Fannin's Flashbacks. So let it be written. So let it be done. Good day.